Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Hello and welcome to the pre-show drive show. Pre-show show, Brian. It's very, very hot this afternoon, about 36 degrees Celsius, 96 degrees Fahrenheit. We're just getting ready. Don't worry, I'll take my sunglasses off when the show is on. We're just heading down towards Treehouse Dam. And James is with me this afternoon. Brian, how are you feeling this afternoon? It's hot. It is hot. We're covered. We're lathered in sunscreen. It is a cookathon. Just checking all our comms and everybody and everything. Sorry. So basically what we're doing now is just making sure that everyone's ready, that the radios are working and our earpieces. So it's just a check before we actually start the show. This is not the actual show, if that makes any sense. The prelude. It's a teaser. That's it. It's a teaser. Hey, Brian? Yeah. Let me see if I can radio James quickly. James, come in for Ranger Byron.
Go ahead, Junior Ranger Byron.
Good afternoon. I'm going to head down towards Treehouse Dam to look for Tingana this afternoon.
Copy that. I will be going north up the Triple M break, depending on where you're from, in an attempt to find Shadow the Leopard.
Copy. Good luck, James. Alright, so our radio comms are working, everyone, which is good. And I hope you all have had a wonderful weekend wherever you are around the world. And it's a lovely Sunday afternoon here. But it's been very, very hot today, which is good. And it's apparently daylight savings today in America, which I know absolutely nothing about. So apparently you're changing back to normal time, which is not our time, so it's different. But the same. But you're back to your normal time, which is confusing for us. We don't have daylight saving time in South Africa, those of you who don't know. So our clocks stay the same all the time, which is great. So we don't have to get confused, because as you see, you've got game rangers who don't understand it. And we'd probably be late for everything. James is busy chatting to somebody.
Okay, copy that.
So just getting an update from
eastern side of Buffalo. Copy that.
I copied that too. Thank you very much. So just getting an update on where they had Tingana this morning. So that's our plan for this afternoon. But you never know what else we could bump into. I'm going to start searching. So who knows? Hopefully we get lucky. I'd love to see a big male leopard. I haven't actually seen one. I'm trying to think, Brian. No, I haven't. Not on this trip that I've been here.
Haven't you?
No, not a male. I've seen. I saw that female that was off Biffle's hook cut line. All right. Anyway, everyone, I'm going to say goodbye for the pre-show show, and we'll see you shortly for the show.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this, your afternoon sunset safari with safariLIVE.
Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Now, we've come onto the Triple M break. Oh, shut up. How dare you talk to me like that? Who do you think you are? Good. Right, I'm sorry about that, everybody. There's a very rude wildebeest over there. No Sunday spirit at all. Right, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by, what should we call him? Wastrel the wildebeest. We've come up the Triple M break, the border between Djuma and Simbambili, to see if we can't find Shadow or her tracks. I haven't found anything yet. And so we're going to sort of continue lurking about here for a little while. Then we're going to head to Sydney's Dam, find some elephants, and then we're going to see what else we can find. That was the call of the great African fish eagle, everybody. My name is James Hendry, in case you were wondering. The chap filming me at the moment is a chap called David Eastor. That is the name, yes, I think. Where's it from again? Poland? No? Australia. So it's an Aboriginal Australian name, is it?
Something like that.
Something like that, yes. It isn't. And on the other vehicle, of course, is Byron, and during the pre-show you would have seen Byron, and in the final control, Louise Pavid, who was asked about this morning. The viewer asked if she was an app, which was quite amusing, as opposed to a human being, I think a bit like Siri. Anyway, that is who the team is today. Brian is filming Byron. I try not to say those two names together because it's just a little bit confusing for me. Please talk to us throughout the course of the afternoon. #safariLIVE, questions@wildearth.tv. But it is very hot today indeed. And if you look over there, our first sighting of the day is Taylor McCurdy returning from lunch. Very nice. Okay, let's head across without further ado to Sydney's Dam and see if we can find anything there. It's apparently 36 degrees. It feels like we're lying in the midst of a volcano, to be honest. That's 96 degrees Fahrenheit. So while it's certainly not the hottest it's going to get, it does feel fairly warm, doesn't it, David? Yes, it does. Now, Byron is going to see if he can re-find Tingana, who, if he has any sense, will have been fast asleep since he was left by Ephraim early this morning. So that will be nice. And we will attempt, at some stage, we'll probably go back to the lions as the temperature cools, and we'll see if they don't get active and do something entertaining. All right, Byron can tell you about himself by himself right now.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Byron, and with me on camera is Brian and the famous Thumb. And it is a very hot afternoon, as James told you. It's wonderful to have all of you, wherever you are around the world. So I am in the area where they had that big male leopard this morning in Tingana. And what I would like to do is see if we can find him. Now, I do know he moved around, and there's a good chance that he possibly moved during the course of the day, but let's have a good look around here and see what we can find. Don't forget, everyone, we are completely live. I'm sure James told you. It's a very hot afternoon, Cardinal. And Cardinal, you say you think all the animals should be in the shade if they're smart. I do think so. I do think most of the animals will be in the shade. And especially this leopard, if he's around, I think he's most likely hiding in a drainage line. I'm just trying to have a good look around this area first, see if I can't find any tracks, and then I may take a walk down into the drainage line to look for him. And please don't forget, you can send us your questions and your comments at #SafariLive on Twitter. Otherwise, email us questions@wildearth.tv. We'll gladly answer them for you. Jeez. What is the thumb today, Brian?
It's a flame.
It's a flame.
It's so hot.
It's a flame because it's so hot. Mopa wanted to know what the thumb was today. And for those of you who are new viewers, Brian has made his thumb very famous. Brian, how long has it been going for?
Almost 2 years now.
Almost 2 years. And it's basically Brian's way of communicating with the viewers, just to let them know he's there. And what else, Brian? Am I right? Yeah.
If someone smiles at the thumb, I'm winning.
Yeah, exactly. As long as he gets a smile from someone, then that's all that he wants. All right, we're going to search this area very carefully, everyone. While I do that, James has got some zebra to show you.
Interestingly, we do have some zebra. Well, that's not what the interestingly part of what I was going to say is, but they were coming down this game path, which is very obvious. You can see them there. They stopped when they saw us, probably because of David's haircut. And now the oldest female who is leading the group, that's the stallion coming up at the back, he's sort of defending from behind. She's led them off the game path down another path because we were in the way. Now, they're going straight to Sydney's Dam. They're just coming across the road now. Oh, hang on. She got an injury on her neck. No, she doesn't. She's just got a really wide stripe. So that's her. And then the rest of them are going to pop out soon on the same path. And they'll go and have a drink at Sydney's Waterhole, which at the moment is just a very large mud wallow, really, with a bit of water in it. So that will be the second wife. Or the oldest wife's offspring. Looks like a wife, though. And here come a youngster, followed by another female, and then the stallion should be there. He is. Look at him. He's a magnificent fellow. He's just popped out there. That's him looking at us. Isn't he great? Yourself. Yes, exactly. And that's the one kinship group, and then David off to the right-hand side. Another one emerging along the same path. And that, everybody, will be the first wife of this herd, unless these are two youngsters. There might be two youngsters from the same group that haven't quite left home yet. That's well possible. In fact, that's what I think we have here. And that's how zebra operate, everyone. The oldest mare in front and the stallion at behind. Because if they are going to be attacked by predators, of course, it's most likely going to be an ambush from behind. And that's why the big fella hangs behind, because he's a bit bigger and he's a little bit more able to defend against lions. Very little else will be able to take down the zebra. Big group of hyenas, yes. Now, that's not a young zebra, I don't think. That's another stallion. That might be, it might be his only wife, you know. Maybe he's only got one wife, David. There would certainly be plenty for me, I must confess. Just want to see the one that's coming across the road now, and I just want to see if he's a young colt, maybe. No, it's a mare. Right, so we've got two little kinship groups, one without children just yet, and one well established with a very large stallion in the lead, at least in the rear. Marvellous. He's a little more skittish than the other fellow. Good stuff. On we go. That was not a bad zebra sighting, was it, David? Not at all. Hello, Junebug. Thank you, I think. You say Byron and James, Bootylicious and Bubble Butty. Isn't that nice, David? Right, we have some impala. And we have a beefalo in the far distance. I'm just getting a report from the final control that Louise fed that Junebug. She fed your comment through to Byron, and I don't know that he was that impressed by it. So you'll have to ask him when you see him next. I think Byron prefers to be described in sort of more masculine terms. Rugged, that sort of thing. Sophie, that's an interesting point. I've often wondered myself why it is that horses, for example, have manes that lie down and zebras have manes that stand up. Now, we know, of course, that they do store fat in the mane, but that doesn't necessarily explain why it is that the manes have necessarily stood up. And you say, is it, you can see the stripes go into the mane. Is it because perhaps it makes them look a bit bigger? I would say yes, why not? Yeah, that's definitely possible. The only thing that I would say makes me doubt that slightly is that, of course, lions and zebras have evolved together for a very long time, and I think it's unusual, or I would think it unlikely that they wouldn't have noticed the ruse, if you like. It's possible. All righty. Now I've just got a deeply loud noise of Byron talking to Ephraim. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I've quietened it down. Louise saw a waterbuck somewhere. Did you, Louise? Where it is? Ah, yes. A whole family of them. Actually coming down to the water now. Hello, Peyton, you're just 10 and you want to know how many wives a zebra has. Well, Peyton, depends on the zebra, really. But mostly they have about 3 or 4 if they're a good sort of age. So once they're about, let's say, 10 years old, they'll have 3 or 4 wives. And that, Peyton, is a lot of work indeed, because he's got to look after them all and all their babies. And so it is a lot of work for him to look after, but it works for the zebras. And thankfully food is in abundance, and so they don't have to make a very large salary in order to supply their enormous family. And of course, the zebra mares, the mothers, are extremely good mothers. They're extremely good at defending their kids. And that's just how it works for them. They're the only animal out here, Peyton, that has that arrangement. All the rest, or all the other herbivores, have a slightly different arrangement. And if we look, for example, at these waterbuck as they're going down to the water, you can see how they're staying in the shade on the fringes of the water. They like to be in the ecotone areas. That means the area between sort of 2 vegetation types. But you can see that those only ladies, there might be 1 or 2 bulls behind, but they will be, this herd of waterbuck will be the females, and then sometimes there'll be males and sometimes they won't. So they don't have the same kind of system as the zebras do. Right, Baron is still knocking about down by Treehouse Dam, and I think Texan sounds like he's going to go and give him a hand, so let's go and find out how his search is progressing.
All right, everyone, we're in this area where this male leopard was seen this morning, and as I assumed, it has moved off. Oh dear, what have I done now? Sorry. Oops, break it, Brian. Too many buttons. So I just want to see if we can't see where or if there are any fresh tracks heading off here. Just try and get Brian in the shade a little bit while he's filming. Hang around with us, everyone, because this is part of the fun, and trying to look for tracks and see where this leopard is. Just want to scan very carefully in case he is lying in the bushes somewhere. So this is quite exciting. I do enjoy this part of finding animals and trying to look for tracks and see. So Brian, you can also keep your eyes peeled if you don't mind. See, a lot of the time, and I think this morning this leopard was lying on this termite mound, but he may have had more shade. That's from the sounds of things. So it's good to try and look around here to see if you can find any tracks where he may have gone. Sometimes the soil is a little bit hard on the termite mound, so it's not easy to see where the tracks actually go. Don't see anything just yet. And he could have gone anywhere, everyone. He could possibly have headed down towards the dam where there is water. I just want to check this area here quickly. If you do hear a growl, it could possibly be a leopard. Don't see anything there. So I think perhaps what we need to do is try and check this, or down towards the dam, and see if there are any drainage lines around there that this leopard could possibly have gone down into. With it being so hot, it's unlikely that he would have moved around too far, but we must remember that these are wild animals, and they do often surprise us, and they will move around a lot more than we expect. But also, male leopards are very, very secretive, and I have tracked male leopards before where they're literally hiding in a bush right next to us where we've walked past. They lay dead still, didn't make a sound, and we didn't know he was in there. So until a bit later, which can be quite scary. It's still very, very hot, everyone. All right. Seems like James is finding quite a bit this afternoon. He has a large grey animal he wants to show you.
Now, everybody, I am sorry for the trauma that you experienced doing what was called an ident. We will refine the process so that it is slightly less traumatic for those of you who have found it traumatic. I know that there have been comments to that effect. There is no intention to traumatize you. We are now looking at a herd of elephants, which is very calming, soothing, easy to watch on a Sunday afternoon, free of all trauma. Good, unless we get too close, in which case trauma could definitely be in the offing. But they seem to be very relaxed around us, so we're not going to worry in the slightest. It is the most gorgeous afternoon. I know I said it was hot, and I wasn't telling a fib, but there's a nice bank of cloud building to the northwest. I've no doubt it will just lie to us for the rest of the day. But there it is, and it's going to provide us with a gorgeous sunset and also just filter the light of it, because it is quite harsh still, the light, but isn't that pretty? Oh, David, can you hear that? You can hear some zebras going, wah, 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 wah. I don't think they're alarming. They're in Buffelshoek. I think they're probably just fighting with each other. Kathy, you say, is it a dry heat? It's not very dry, you know. Because of the rain we've had, there is a certain amount of moisture coming off the vegetation through what we call transpiration and also just out of the soil. So, yeah, there's a little bit of water in the air. It's not very humid, though. It's not, say, like downtown Chennai of a summer's day, which is likely to kill most people. But it is quite moist, and that does make things a bit sweaty, doesn't it, David? Yes. David and I are a bit sweaty at the moment. We're hoping not to be sweaty by the end of the drive, though. And of course, the human being, while we talk about the heat, has evolved to deal with heat in a far more effective way than most animals are. And that, of course, is one of the major reasons we reckon that our human ancestors stood on two legs. It allowed us to be able to cope with heat because far less of our surface area is exposed to the sun if you're standing upright. Let me just make sure you understand that, because I'm not sure I explained it correctly or explained it clearly enough. So if you are, for example, pretend you're lying down on a beach somewhere in full sun, your body, your surface temperature of your body is going to get far more sun on it than is the top of your head, for example. If you stand up, though, then obviously the angle of the sun changes and you're able to move around and you won't get quite as hot. Now, it doesn't really work if you happen to be a person of a leucistic human being, i.e. a white person, and from sort of northern climes where we obviously evolved to deal with less sun. But if you're black, if you're melanistic, if you've got melanin in your skin, walking around in the middle of the day in this kind of heat is generally slightly easier than it is for those of European descent. And much easier, for example, than it is for many of the animals out here, like the lions, for example. Now, this is a young bull come to say hello to us. I must just apologize that I wasn't looking at you when the camera came to me. David's clicking has become slightly, soft. Thank you. That was David going to tell me that he was coming back to us. That's interesting that pulling moisture out of the mouth, we do sometimes. I mean, I've read about it. I've read about elephants putting their trunks down into their stomachs, but I've never seen it before, and I don't think that was happening there. But interesting that so much came out of the mouth. And I'm sure they will head off to water, and I suspect, actually quite strongly, that this was the herd that was around the Djuma Dam earlier on, and they were having a whale of a time. There's not water there, is there, Dave? You see that big cow in the background there? She has found water. So maybe there's a puddle. I can't really see, no. Anyway, they're very, very peaceful. They found nice things to eat here on the fire break, and we were talking of my sort of theme for the last three drives has been colour, and I just think that the colour here, the silver grey green leaves of the silver cluster leaves juxtaposed with the grey and the relatively harsh light is just very pretty indeed. And they're just moving off north towards Biffle's Hook, which is the property to the north of us, of course. I mentioned the other day that people don't like that elephants don't like human beings on bicycles. And Alice, you're in Ohio and wondering why that should be the case. Now, this cow's just checking us out. She's just going to make sure that we don't mean any threat. So I'm just going to project telepathically to her that we do not mean any threat. Clearly my telepathy worked. You see that, David? Alice, they don't like them, I think, because they're so unfamiliar. They don't like anything that's unfamiliar. And when I say they don't like them, I mean I know that of many instances of game guards on bicycles being chased by them, and a friend of mine actually nearly lost his life. He was doing some mountain bike riding, and an elephant set upon him and two other friends of mine, and the bicycles were destroyed. The guys ran off in different directions, dropped their bikes. and the elephants left the humans and destroyed the bicycles. So I think it's just that they are completely unfamiliar with what they are. I imagine that over time they would become used to them in the same way that elephants get used to horses. On horseback safaris, they get used to vehicles that we're in now. Isn't this sweet? This little elephant trying to show how strong he is by breaking down a sapling. But it's a bit bigger than a sapling. And I think that big cow at the back there, I think she's the big matriarch. She's substantially larger than the others. And again in the background, the zebra going, wah, 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 wah. David, would you like to try the zebra alarm call?
No.
That sounded like a chihuahua. We will not attempt that again, shall we, David? Maybe we'll do a bit of practice. Now, while we sit here, Byron, of course, is fearlessly looking for Tingana. That is one of the things about Byron, isn't it? His selfless dedication and a sacrifice of personal safety for the benefit of others. Thank you, Byron. In the meantime, we will enjoy these elephants. Now, we have a question from somebody I'm not sure I've heard from before. Ronaldo, you're in a place called Cavernet, which could be Antarctica for all I know. I'm not sure where on earth it is. But you want to know how we know the difference. Tavernet, sorry, I still don't know where it is, Louise. Tavernet. Do you want to know, Ronaldo, how we tell the difference between a male and a female elephant? Well, let's go to the big cow at the back there, and this is going to be the easiest way to show you. The first thing to note, Ronaldo, is that she's got a flat back. You can see the spine is very straight. And then if you look down between her front legs, and this is the easiest way to tell, you can see her mammary glands. If she moves that right foot of hers forward, which she will very shortly, not so shortly, but she will do it. Oh, you can see there we go. So you can see there, she's got mammary glands there, which give them a very sort of humanoid feature, but very clearly female. And then apparently, they will tell you that the forehead of that cow is squarer than the forehead of a male, but I've seen males with very square foreheads, so that can get you into a little bit of trouble. They will also tell you that the tusks are thicker on a male, and they point out frontwards, exactly like that cow's tusks are. So the best way is to look between the front legs and look at the back there. That's the easiest way. There are no big bulls here, but that first elephant that came past here was a young bull. Now, if you look at the little one there, Ronaldo, that's a little bit more difficult because it hasn't quite hit puberty yet. But I would say that that's probably a young cow. Square forehead, very straight back. See, pulling the water out of their mouths there. That's very interesting. Marvellous, Ronaldo. Thank you very much. You say Tavernet is in Italy. It's great to have you with us. I'm not sure, we definitely haven't spoken to you before. Well, I haven't, I don't think. So it's lovely to hear from you all the way from Italy there. I hope it's a marvellous day and not too chilly in Tavernet. North or south? I will try and find out when I get home. Okay, that was an elephant sighting. They're going to head off towards Biffles Hook now. So we're going to head off towards Biffles Hook Dam, which, ironically, is not on Biffles Hook. Biffles Hook, for those of you who don't know, is the reserve to the north of us, where those elephants have gone. And we are not allowed to go there, but of course the elephants, they don't adhere to property laws that human beings have to. So they've gone off to the north, and we're going to head off to the east to a waterhole and see if there isn't anything other than the lonely hippopotamus there. Now, we have had some very special Twitter handles today, and here's another one. Enlightened Guru. Enlightened Guru, you would like to know how many waterfalls we have on the reserve. Enlightened Guru, I imagined at one stage, probably, I don't know, a couple thousand years ago. Oh, water holes, not waterfalls. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. Enlightened Guru, I can answer your question then while we look at this young elephant. We've got Buffelshoek Dam, Treehouse Dam, Twin Dams, Djuma Dam. So that's 4. Plus the Pan at Djuma, I suppose. So that's 5. That's 5 sort of biggish ones. Then it's impossible to say at this time of the year and into the wet season, Enlightened Guru, because of the fact that there is lots of standing water. There are natural pans where the soil is very clay-like, and so after rain they hold water, and those become water holes as well. So, 5 or 6 5 permanent ones, and then a number of temporary ones for the wet season. And that's why often, in a time like February, if there's been good rain, the game is very sparsely dispersed. We've had a real boon time of it over the last few weeks. We've been seeing incredible general game, lots of elephants, amazing stuff with the lions, because all the general game that they like to eat is here. So that will change as the water starts to spread out a bit more. Nice question. Thank you, Enlightened Guru. I hope that your karma is good today. In the meantime, let's head across to Byron and find out how his fearless sacrificing of his bodily well-being is going.
Dam and around the bottom. Hi everyone. So still no luck. We got some tracks of the male leopard heading east towards the dam as we thought, but it's a bit tricky to track through here, and there's also a lot of buffalo and that around, so that's not ideal if we are walking through the bush. I'm going to loop around and see if we can't find this leopard. I do think he's in the drainage line close to the dam that leads away from the dam. But you never know, But it's so nice that you got to spend some time with those elephants and buffalo that James had. A little squirrel just ran in front of us and disappeared into a tree, or into a log. It's very, very hot this afternoon. Definitely feel it. Not too many birds calling at the moment, and we always look around. Rachel from Ireland, you want to know if we like biltong. Now, for those of you who don't know, biltong is, in America, you call it jerky, and around the rest of the world, it's basically strips of beef which have been dried. You hang it and you dry it. You do put a lot of salt and pepper and sometimes coriander on it. It all depends, different spices, depends what you enjoy. You hang it and it's dried meat, basically, that we eat as a snack in South Africa. It's actually eaten throughout most of Southern Africa, or Africa in general, I think. And Rachel, you want to know if we enjoy it? I love it. I love biltong. Brian, do you enjoy it? Thoroughly, yeah. And I know James enjoys it too. So we all really enjoy biltong. It's very nice. It's a good snack. And we enjoy it a lot when we're watching rugby, especially. A lot of us enjoy rugby, and especially on the weekends, getting together with friends and family, and it's one of the snacks that South Africans really, really enjoy. Rachel, we'd love it out here. Just trying to listen carefully to some of the other guides. There are one or two other guides in the area also looking for this male leopard, so hopefully he hasn't moved too far. But just as I said, they do move around a lot more than people think. But I think with it being so hot, this leopard most likely moved around a little bit in the morning, went and drank, and then disappeared down into drainage to rest for the day. That would be my guess, but who knows? Some giraffe tracks around here and buffalo. But the giraffe was heading in the opposite direction, not down the road. So, Jen Marvey would like to know how large this reserve is that we are currently on. So altogether, it's about 3.2 million hectares. So it's roughly 7 million acres of land, more or less. That's about as big as the greater Kruger Park where we are situated in. We are basically on the western side of that and in an area known as the Sabi Sands, and we are on Djuma. So the animals can move freely basically through this entire game reserve. We obviously stick to our little area that we're on, Djuma, and a bit of cheetah plains and Arathusa. But the entire game reserve is very, very big, so the animals can move wherever they like. There are no fences preventing them from doing so. There is, however, a fence right around protecting the area, protecting the animals and protecting... Is that something there? Hang on a second. Oh, there's a leopard, everyone. There's a leopard. Look at that. Found him. He's lying in the shade. We're going to... Let me drive around. It's tricky to see. We can't see from this angle. I'm going to drive around quickly, but the leopard is there. That is fantastic. I just spotted him with my binoculars. Just as we thought, he came down to drink at the waterhole. And he's lying in the shade. Isn't that lucky? Hang on, we're going to get a nice view of him shortly. Shall I stop up here, Brian? There's another vehicle there. Maybe through there you might get a view. There we go. So they've also just come into this area now. That's the other vehicle that was looking for this leopard. I will try to go a bit closer soon. There he is, everyone. Look at that. Fantastic. Oh, this is wonderful. See how hot that leopard is, panting away. It's very, very warm, and he's lying in the shade on that little termite mound. Maybe he's got a bit of a cool breeze coming up from there. We're very fortunate that we've got the camera and we can zoom in, so we don't have to park too close for you to appreciate this beautiful leopard. So we'll give some of the other vehicles around with the guests on them the opportunity to get a bit closer so they can see him. Yes, I'm so excited. So, I mean, after walking around, having a look for tracks and trying to find out where this leopard had moved to, and we were right, he probably just came down, had a drink earlier, and is lying in the shade here. Oh, this is fantastic. Oh, there's a bit of a whirlwind blowing to our right. A small little whirlwind. Wow, look at that, everyone. Oh, you can hear that wind. That's very cool. It's probably because of all this hot air. Not quite a tornado, but anyway, isn't this fantastic? I'm so happy we got to find this male leopard, and I was getting a bit worried at one stage. I thought maybe he's moved off and disappeared completely. We're not too far from the southern part of our boundary, so I mean, the chances are that he could maybe have wandered down there after a drink. But luckily we were right. He came down, probably drank earlier today, and I decided just to rest in the shade. It is very, very warm, and the chances of him moving around too much are quite unlikely. So this really is fantastic. having a sip of water, everyone. Sorry, it is quite hot and mouth is getting a bit dry. Now, this leopard, from my understanding, is one of the dominant males around here, and I'm not too sure of any other big males that do wander onto the property. I don't know. Anyway, but if any of you know which other males do move around this area, I know there's a very large male leopard which does go on to Arethusa, and that is known as the Anderson male, and he goes on to Arethusa and Nkoro, which is south of our boundary. And that is, I have seen that male leopard before. He's got a very big territory, and he is one of the largest leopards I've ever seen. Now, this male is also, I mean, Mvula, yes, Mvula is around here. James, I don't think this leopard is underweight. I think it's just the angle that he's lying at. You know, they're fairly slender cats, but judging by the size of this male's neck and his head, he does look like a big male leopard. It's beautiful. And now I remember, everyone, when I was here in June. Was it June? No. When was it? My interview drive, the very first drive I did for safariLIVE, I went and sat at a warthog burrow. And that was the first morning I'd gone out. Sat at the warthog burrow and I mean, no, sorry, it was a hyena den. It was a hyena den, actually, and got to sit at this hyena den. Saw a hyena lying out in the open, and while we were sitting, Mvula stuck his head up right behind the hyena. Just, I think we had almost just gone live. We were sitting there for about 5 minutes, and that was incredible. That was the first leopard I saw on Djuma and on safariLIVE. Aaron, and you say there's another male leopard around here known as Djuma, and his territory is predominantly further north. Now, the interesting thing with these male leopards is their territories may overlap slightly. They are very territorial, everyone, so they do mark their territory and defend their territory against other leopards. However, they may overlap slightly, and the reason for that is possibly for water. You know, when it is so hot, and especially during this dry season, the larger dams and water areas would be used by a few different male leopards. But they do defend these areas against one another, their territories against one another. And the interesting thing with leopards is that females, and within a male's territory, a big male territory could be, it could be anywhere between 10 and 15 or even 20 square kilometers, which is a very large area. And within that territory, there'll be a number of female leopards that this male would possibly mate with. So success for these animals, and especially these male leopards, success is to have a large territory so that you can keep other males out and females in and mate with those females. You know, in nature, if you have offspring and you have a large territory, you are considered to be successful. And from, I think it's Caffeinator, and you would like to know, I assume you enjoy coffee, and you would like to know how do we ensure the safety of the people while they're on safari. So the whole thing is we need to be very respectful of the animals. So we are very aware of their behavior, and we can see this male leopard, for example, he is out in the open, and the other vehicles are much closer than we are at the moment, so that the guests can all have a good view of this leopard. But if he was showing signs of aggression, those vehicles would move off almost immediately. They won't hang around, because at the end of the day, they need to be very careful with the people on the vehicles. But these animals, do view the vehicles as something which passes by, no direct threat. And I think that's the important thing that we need to realize, is that as long as they don't feel threatened, they won't necessarily attack the vehicles. And also, these animals are still a bit nervous of the vehicles. So if we had to drive right up towards them, they would move off. So with all of that said, we try our best to ensure the safety of our guests. And the guides are all very well qualified, and they do understand and know animal behavior as much as we can. So we are very, very careful when we're viewing these animals, and respectful. I think that's the most important thing. Keep our distance, have respect, and don't force the animal into a situation which may cause them to feel threatened, because then they will act in one of two ways: either aggressively and attack, or they would just run away. And most of the time they run away. We got a question from somebody called Driving Over Leopards. Hope you haven't done that. I doubt it, but it's an interesting Twitter name. And you wanted to know, why is it that the Sabi Sand area is so well known for leopard viewing? And I think one of the reasons is the Sabi Sand Game Reserve has made up of a number of different lodges. There are quite a few. I think they're around 36 or maybe closer to 42 different lodges throughout this entire area. Some private and some privately owned lodges. And what happens is these vehicles and the rangers and trackers do go out and track and find these animals on a fairly regular basis. So the one thing is that the animals become, as we can see, used to the vehicles and very relaxed around vehicles, whereas generally leopards are known to be very, very skittish and very shy animals. But I think one of the reasons why there's such a high density in the area is because there's a lot of good food for them. So in other words, there's a lot of antelope species which the leopards prefer feeding on. Everything from the size of a steenbok, a young steenbok, or steenbok adult for that matter, all the way up to a large kudu. Leopards will feed on all those antelope species. There's a lot of food around here. So you've got food, you've got water, and also the terrain. Leopards like dense, thick areas, drainage lines where they can hide, where they can stalk. The bush is generally a lot thicker, so it makes it ideal for these ambush predators. So I think a combination of all of that is why this area is well known for leopard viewing, and is probably the best leopard viewing in Africa, I dare say, because I have worked in this area for 7, 8 years, and I've seen so many amazing leopard sightings here, and to be honest, better than anywhere else that I've been to. So, but again, it's never a guarantee, and we are fortunate that being out here every day and tracking and following these animals, we do get to find them and show all of you, viewers and guests that come out from all over the world. So it is lovely to be able to show them to you. Sorry, I'm going to need another sip of water. Sure, it's very warm. That leopard's got the right idea about lying in the shade over there, but you can see still, and that panting is purely because he is hot. He's trying to cool down a little bit. John Marvey, you want to know how many leopards are there in the area? Now, I would say frequently seen on Djuma, we have got, so it is Mvula, that male leopard, then there's Tingana, this male leopard, Karula and her 2 cubs, we'll count all of them, Shadow is another female leopard, and then as far as I know, there's at least 2 or 3 others, I think. And I can't remember all their names, everyone. I do apologize, but I don't know them very well. I haven't seen them. And so there's probably between or roughly around 9 or 10, I think, just within this immediate area on Djuma that we do see on a regular basis. And it's not to say we see them every day, but maybe at least once a week we get to see 1 or 2 different leopards, if not more so. So I think that's about it. Then there are also leopards on Arethusa and leopards on Cheetah Plains that we see. So there are quite a number of leopard around, because then you start going into different territories. So then you'll get more leopard. I'm very, very happy that we got to see this leopard. It does look like a beautiful male. Now, I'm not too sure now. I actually don't know how old this leopard is. To be honest, he looks like he's about 4 or 5 years old, but I'm not sure. So if any of our viewers, if you could let me know, I know a lot of you have been seeing these animals a lot longer than I have, and you do know where they come from. How old is Tingana at the moment? Okay, we're going to sit around here a little bit more with this leopard. I'm going to see if I can get another position, maybe get us out of the sun. The leopard's definitely got the right idea about being in the shade. While we move around and see if we can get another view, let's head over to James. He's got some beefalo he'd like to show you, as he calls them.
There is something odd about this buffalo, and I just can't quite figure out what it is. There's a terrapin just behind him. And as Louise said, does this buffalo perhaps have a secret snorkel? To which my answer was, that is one possibility, but there is another much more likely scenario. And that, of course, David, is that he is dead, no longer with us, kicked the bucket, pushing daisies, or in this case, bits of algae. And I don't know, he must have died today. We came here this morning. He obviously got into the water. He's in such a bad state from the drought. Either couldn't lift his head up or just decided that it was too much for him to carry on. And he is just, well, he's gone. Poor fellow. You can see also that his stomach is starting to bloat. Now, it's interesting. Apparently, you saw a very ropey-looking buffalo here yesterday evening with Taylor, so perhaps this is the poor fellow now. This is the drought still taking its toll. And, Davey, can you see the oxpecker there on his belly? And then the aquatic oxpeckers, which are the serrated hinged terrapins, they're doing a huge amount of feeding. They will take the ticks off him first, in exactly the same way as the oxpecker is. And then eventually, I hope that he will be found by some hyenas or lions, because if he isn't, he's going to absolutely putrefy. And that is not going to be pleasant at all. Poor fellow. That's not nice to see something like that, I must say. Anyway, on a more cheerful note, the hippopotamus is still absolutely fine. And this buffalo's friend, who's found the fact that he's died in front of his mate distasteful, has gone off and lain in another puddle somewhere else. He too does not look good, but he looks better than his colleague. Because the buffalo really are taking an absolute hammering. And I wonder how much the TB or the tuberculosis, what sort of effects that's having on them. Simply because the drought will have weakened them to the extent that I think the disease has probably taken hold in many of them. And perhaps many of them are too far gone for the extra water or the extra food to be able to help them. Then, Davy, just over the top there are some wattled starlings, and I think there might be a male amongst them, and they're quite pretty. No, right. Just straight sort of basically over the top of my nose now. Right there. Yeah. And those are stones. They've flown off now. Right, we'll try that again, everyone. Well, Irena, you say we should get a tractor and pull him out of the water. It's just not necessary. That's a red-billed buffalo weaver, not a wattled starling, but that's okay. Because animals actually are not really kind of affected by the putrefaction of their water. Now, David, I've got a very special treat for you. Can you see my leg? Oh, no. On my leg was one of those regal blowflies. And they're actually astoundingly attractive. Anyway, they're pretty disgusting. Right, let's move on from here. And this poor fellow to his watery grave. There's so few hyenas around at the moment that I don't know that anything's going to find him. So many buffalo around at the moment trying to find something to eat. Yes, Linda, very good supposition from you, Melinda. You say, do buffalo have digestive troubles from foods they don't normally eat? Yes, they do, and at the moment... Sorry, I thought there was another one in there. At the moment, buffalo are eating things that they don't normally eat or wouldn't choose to eat, obviously, and those would be leaves from trees. And the leaves in trees have got a huge number of chemical compounds in them that are toxic to some animals, and some animals, browsers specifically, have got chemicals or enzymes in their bellies to deal with those. Buffalo can browse, but only a little bit. And at the moment, I think they're browsing almost exclusively, and that means that they're going to be poisoning themselves and that they're not going to get anything like the same nutrition that they need from the grass when it eventually comes up. So yeah, I think that's a very good supposition indeed. Let's see what else we can see up here. Then we're going to head down to the south and see if maybe sweet Kurula hasn't come back across. What I don't know. Then also, let us just stop underneath this marula tree. Andrina, I'm going to disagree with you slightly here, and I'm going to then berate myself. I wanted to stop under this marula tree because I thought it is almost marula season, and our marula tree in campus started to produce fruit, but I think this is a male tree, so it's not producing any fruit. Andrine, you said that there's no dignity in dying in the bush. And I think I've probably, through my rather flippant commentary there, given that impression. No, I think there is, because that buffalo, in many respects, was a roaring success. He's an old buffalo bull. Many don't make it to his age. He wasn't killed by lions, which very few managed not to be killed by lions. And yes, of course, he died in the back end of a nasty drought. But he gave it a good tonk, as they say. So yes, while he's not particularly dignified lying there, I suppose, I do think that he's had a life well lived. Now, there's a very pregnant impala ewe there. There we are. Oh, it's so soon that we're going to see a baby impala. I said yesterday, not yesterday, I said a while back that I thought the first one would be hopefully tomorrow. That's the 7th of November, my brother's birthday. And so maybe we'll be lucky with that. David said the 5th of November, so David can go and get knotted. He's, I'm afraid, unfortunately, out of the running for the grand prize of a pat on the back from all members of the safariLIVE crew. Bad luck, David. Sorry about that. Another David. Ah, but he is still the downpour, Dave. Yes, he did win the rain race. David is now denying, Louise, that he said it would be the 5th of November. It's written down, David. You cannot back out now. Just because you won one competition doesn't mean you're going to win both. We'll get a look at the western horizon from here, and you can see the clouds, lying fiends that they are, growing. Oh, it was, oh, David said that he thought it would be the woodland kingfisher that came back on the 5th of November. Let's just try and remember to yesterday. Did the woodland kingfisher come back yesterday? Can anyone remember? No, it didn't. You didn't win that one either.
Well, I'd like to make a call on the land.
You'd like to make a call on the lambs. Well, if you film that starling nicely enough, you can. That was a greater blue-eared glossy starling sitting so beautifully in the light. And there is a diker. That was just the legs there. Oh, very nice. Perfect diker shot. David, give us your prediction. The 8th?
Yes.
Okay, that's probably quite early, David. If I was going to advise you, I'd tell you to go 2 weeks later, but there it is. You take your chances. Okay, good. I mean, the only reason I picked the 7th is that it is dear Douglas's birthday. No, Louise, I have placed my bet for the return of the woodland kingfisher. I said one day earlier than last year, the 15th of November. There we are. At least I think that's what I said. Oh, I wanted to show you the western horizon, that's correct. Anyway, I'll find a better view of it. Byron is still with the flat cat that is our dominant male leopard Tingana. Please tell him so that he might tell me when his 10th birthday is going to be.
James giving us a clue there. He's saying this leopard's 10 years old, and having a better look at him now, he's sat up for us. I can see the size of his head and that dewlap. Look at that under the throat there, everybody, that very thick dewlap. So that's a good sign that this is an older, more dominant leopard. And I had only seen him from the bank quite a way away. So, yeah, so his 10th birthday is coming up apparently, so he's about 9 years old. So this leopard is in his prime at the moment, which is wonderful. He is a beautiful big male leopard. This is really so special, everyone. And he just moved around for us briefly, just changed positions. He was lying on his left side, he's now lying on his right side, facing away from us. Just trying to cool down, scanning the area. There's actually nothing around here at the moment. And as it starts cooling down, this leopard will definitely move around a bit more. I think most likely try and hunt this evening, perhaps. I'm not sure when last he ate. These leopards are, very opportunistic too. So it doesn't matter if he's necessarily very hungry or not. If he does come across any potential prey, he will try and hunt. But I think for now he's just trying to stay cool and he's resting. Nina's, wow, I think I can see it there. Actually, you said, do I know about Tingana's smiley face on his left shoulder? And it looks like it's that over there. Nina's, is that correct? Is that the smiley face you're talking about? It looks like it. 2 eyes and a smiley face. Have a nice day, Tingana. That's very interesting. Wow, that is incredible. And everybody, those who, often people ask me, what is the difference between a leopard and a cheetah? And you can see the leopards actually have rosettes. Those patterns on the coat are known as rosettes. They're not clear spots, whereas the cheetah have got clear spots. And obviously there are a number of other differences, but the main one is that these leopards have these beautiful patterns, these rosettes all over the body. And there are sections of the body that there are little spots, but predominantly rosettes. Yeah, and you want to know if we do have cheetah. We do see cheetah occasionally. We haven't seen for about a week or 2 weeks, I think. I think it was Jamie who saw the last cheetah here. I think just before she went on leave, she saw them on cheetah plains. 2 males that come or pass through the area occasionally. Oh, sorry, it was Taylor about 2 weeks ago. I remember Taylor and Jamie were on drive and Taylor saw the cheetah. That's right. And so we do get them occasionally, but there are not many in this area. And the reason for that is cheetah prefer open areas, open plains. That's generally the habitat they do enjoy. They'll move through these areas without a doubt. Oh, there's a nice big yawn. Look at that. Wow. They do move around, and but generally prefer the open areas, and because of that, there's certain areas that have beautiful plains, and that's generally where you get a lot of cheetah. And it's the northern part of Mala Mala has got some nice plains, and that leads on to cheetah plains with those big open areas, and that's usually where we see the cheetah, is on cheetah plains. Robin, you've asked an interesting question about following and tracking these animals, and you want to know, have we ever... Let's see where this leopard goes. Oh. I'm just going to see, he's walking behind us, everyone. I'm not sure. Just trying to see where he goes and see if we can reposition. It's going to be a bit tricky here because of the dam. Okay, everyone, I'm just going to try reposition. Hold on a second. He's just moved down behind us, but not far. Let me just try and see if I can. We were parked on quite a steep slope there. All right, I'll tell you what, while I try and reposition, let's quickly head back to James, get an update from him, see what he's up to, and then we'll get you back shortly.
On this gorgeous afternoon, we haven't found anything further of great note. Lots of very fine general game, many impala, a couple of nyala, and they all went into the bushes, I'm afraid. So now we're heading down what's known as Mamba Road. But you will notice that the light is now starting to soften slightly as we drive due west into the sun. And it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous afternoon. I was rather hoping that Kurulski might have come across here with her babies, and perhaps she'd strung an antelope in a tree for us to view with her. But if she isn't here, something will be. Oh, David. I said to David I wanted to find a cicada. There are many around here. Now, of course, a cicada is a very cunning insect. A cicada is cunning in that he changes the tone of his call when you get anywhere near him, and then if he thinks you're really getting close, he just shuts up. Right, so David, I'm going to attempt to try and cache one. Louise, I will be off the radio, so if you wish to ask a question, you'll have to relay it through David, Here we go, everybody. One must move with great stealth when attempting to catch a cicada. It's in this bush here. It is a Dicrostachys bush. I believe I'm getting close. You will hear the sound getting louder as the microphone in my hat gets closer. Now, what you have to do is stop moving now, so that it thinks that you don't know that it's here. And you move a bit more. Oh, can you hear the pitch going up? The pitch is going up because it knows I'm here, and now it's shut up. Isn't that amazing? There's another one that ain't so clever. Hang on. I'm really close. It must be just above my head. Now, unfortunately, I'm not the size of Brian. Now, they're not as quick as flies, but they are quick. So I'm going to try and pull. I'm going to try and pull the tree down towards myself. Let's move this one out the way. Oh, he's gone. Did you see him fly, Dave?
Mm-mm.
I think he's... No, he's gone. Anyway, I found him, everybody. He was about that big, and he definitely was a he, of course, because the ladies don't sing, and that was him trying to attract a lady after a year of enforced celibacy under the ground. And it was quite a subtle sound from that cicada. It was quite a nice one, that close up. If you get close to some of them, of course, it is, like I've said to you before, like having a dentist drilling into your skull. Here we go. Sorry about that, I nearly had him. Just out of reach. If I was Brian, I definitely would have caught him. Unfortunately, at 5'8", everybody, cicada catching a very, very difficult task. While I commiserate with myself about the lack of cicada, Tingana is thirsty.
Oh, look at this, everyone. Perfect light. He just moved down and he started to drink. This is incredible. Really, really wonderful. He looks very, very thirsty. And look, you can actually see clearly how his tongue is curled back while he's lapping up the water. So he doesn't get a lot of water with each sip. And that's why a lot of these big cats do tend to lie down and drink for quite a while before they move off. Look at the sunlight in his eyes, his beautiful golden eyes. Oh, this is really, really incredible. This is a photographer's dream, everybody. This really, really is. Look at that. James, you want to know if these animals are tagged or chipped in any way? No, they are not. Not at all. And these are completely wild animals, so tracking and finding them is not always easy. That's why we rely on finding their tracks and following them around. But no, they are not tagged or chipped in any way at all. Wow, that really is incredible. Joan, you want to know if leopards can swim. Now, that's a good question. Joan, I've tracked leopards up to a river just not too far south from here, called the Sand River. When it's been flowing quite substantially and tracked a leopard right down to the river. And that afternoon, so that was the morning, that afternoon we found the male leopard on the northern side, and the tracks went straight down to the river. So the only way he could have got across was by swimming. I've never seen it, but they can. I do think they can, and I say they can because I've seen a leopard actually, now that I think of it. And one of my guests, a gentleman, a very keen photographer, and we used to spend a lot of time just looking for leopards. And we once got a beautiful young male leopard that was lying in a little waterhole, in a pan. He was lying in the middle in the water, which was incredibly strange. And I do think if they need to, if they have to, they will swim, but they generally try to avoid getting into the water, just like lions. Lions will also swim if they have to, but they try and avoid the water. They won't go in if they don't have to. Just getting back to that question about the tags and the leopards, or animals. We don't tag or monitor or collar any of the animals in these areas. This is a completely natural game reserve, and these animals are free roaming, and it's purely by skill and a bit of luck when we do find these animals. So there's no tagging or collaring or GPS tracking of these animals. It's basically the authentic way of finding animals, tracking, listening to the bush, looking for signs and following and finding them. That is what makes a safari like this so wonderful. It's because you never know what you're going to see, and when you do get sightings like this, it is incredible. It is very, very special, and I cannot stress to everyone how wonderful it is to see this big male leopard drinking at this waterhole, because it is not something you see regularly, especially in beautiful afternoon light like this. So we are very fortunate, and you can see how thirsty he is. I know exactly how he feels. I feel the same. Steph, you say that Tingana should go to Buffelshoek Dam if he doesn't mind getting his feet wet. There's a free meal there for him. Yeah. And leopards are opportunistic. If they do find carcasses, they will try and get a free meal, definitely. A lot of the time I've seen male leopards steal kills from female leopards. They move in and chase them off and take what's left of the kill. So they are very opportunistic. Isn't this just beautiful, everyone? It is still quite warm and muggy. There's not a lot of bird calls or anything around, but this leopard is very, very happy that he's getting a cool drink of water, and he hasn't stopped for about 5 minutes, if not longer. I'm so glad we got to find him this afternoon. This is really incredible. Let's see where he goes now. He's possibly going to move away from the dam a little bit, maybe head towards a cooler area and lie in some shade again. It'll be interesting. Let's see. He looked like he had a little bit of a limp earlier, but maybe he was just a bit stiff. And again, everyone lying down to drink. Fantastic. This is a thirsty, thirsty leopard. So my thinking is that this leopard did drink earlier this morning when he moved down here, and then just plonked himself on top of this termite mound, rested in the shade during the heat of the day. And I think with all that panting and the heat, trying to regulate his body temperature. He most likely got very thirsty, and that's why he's drinking now. Take the opportunity while he can. And also, you must need to think that sorry, I just lost my train of thought, but with these leopards, or this male, why he's drinking so much at the moment, we need to remember is he'll also be moving around and marking his territory during the course of the evening. So he needs a lot of urine for that, to be able to mark the territory. And that gets back to Robin's question from earlier. You asked about, have we ever mapped the territories that these animals move through? And we have, Robin. So in these areas where we work permanently, and I know, if I can use the example of when I worked at Londolozi, so south of here, which is very well known for its leopard viewing. And on Londolozi, we had leopard identity kits that were able to identify the leopards, and on those kits we also would map basically the area that we thought these leopards would move in, their territory, and it was based on where we would see them, where we would follow them and see how they'd mark their territory. But it's not always completely accurate, because they may extend their territory somewhat at some point, or move into another territory if they are exploring. But we do generally, if those people who work in the areas permanently and get to see these leopards on a regular basis, they will be able to monitor the general movements of these animals and see where they do move throughout the territory. So it will give us an idea. And I think, for example, that Anderson male, that very dominant or big dominant male leopard, the northern part of Londolozi and all the way into Arathusa and Nkoro, he has got a huge territory because he is such a big dominant male leopard. So also what will happen is, even though his territory extends beyond the boundaries of a certain area, the various lodges may communicate with each other and say, look, we've seen him and he's this far east or he's this far west. Then that will give us an idea of how far or how large their territory is and where it extends to. Oh, look at that dewlapper. He is a big leopard, this. He really is. And so great that we got to see him moving around, from lying down and moving around. All right, I'm going to try and stick with Tingana a little bit longer, to see where he moves. And while I do that, let's head to James, and he's got some primates that he'd like to show you.
We're having such a wonderful time here, everybody. The monkeys are sitting in the tree there. It's a very small troop of probably only 6 or 7 of them, and I think the others are off to the left-hand side of what you can see now, a very tender scene of a mum and a little one. She's just been grooming the little one, then the little one attempted to fall out of the tree and then managed to rectify the situation. We're in the deep shade of the Umluamati drainage, and it's just gorgeous down here. There's another one right above us, Davy, just kind of in the leadwood tree here. There he is. He's checking us out. There was a brief impala alarm call, and that sent them scuttling about the place, but they looked and didn't see anything, and now everything is complete peace. So I'm going to be quiet for 10 or 15 seconds. Just have a listen to what's going on here. We don't need to listen to the Game Drive channel. Just complete still silence. You can hear the ashy grey tit flycatcher. Tree, 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 tree. White-browed scrub robin. Grey go-away bird. Starling. As it flies over the top. Gosh, it's wonderful. I don't want to leave here, ever. Look how peaceful those monkeys are. Little one's gone to sleep, lying on her mum's chest, probably having a little drink, maybe. There, being cleaned. There's another little monkey coming on the ground. Just there. That's it. That's probably a female. I think she's pregnant. See how fat she is. And now you see they're relaxing completely about us, which is fantastic. We very seldom have great monkey sightings because they move away from us, and that's better than them being too confiding, because if they get too used to us, then they start to cause trouble. Just, you know, it is Sunday, and my mother always used to clean my toenails on a Sunday when I was a very small boy. I remember that. This is obviously a very well brought up family. And here, check this one here on the left, Dave. Right here, close by. It's found something to eat. What's it eating? Jackalberries? Oh, no, it's a marula fruit. No, it's not. It's a jackalberry fruit. There's a late jackalberry fruit. And that was a little ringneck duff in the background. You can see very clearly a female now. Look how relaxed. Now the big male is up on the top, and he will be acting sentinel, seeing if there are any predators around. Not a care in the world, eh? This is just too wonderful. Now everybody, apparently we have lost internet connection in the FC, which means we may or may not be live, but I'll pretend we are. But please do continue to send your questions, #safariLIVE, questions@wildearth.tv, and we will get back to you with them as soon as internet connection is re-established. At the moment, however, we are going to stay right here with these glorious little monkeys. I think glorious is definitely the wrong adjective for monkeys. I'm going to sneak very slightly forward, Dave, just because there are a whole lot to our left, and I think we could probably see them quite nicely. There we go. We seem to be still live, which is good news. Definitely finding little bits of jackalberry fruit. Oh, probably from this young jackalberry tree above which, or under which they're sitting. It is, and you know, these trees fruit at different times of the year. And remember, the big jackalberry at Twin Dams Road fruited about a month or two ago. And this one is now fruiting beautifully. Oh, look, it climbed up. Oh, this is wonderful. This is how a Sunday should be, isn't it, Dave? Yeah, you can see the fruit there, actually. Yeah, well spotted. And the calls of the birds just adding to what is just the most wonderful atmosphere. It's starting to cool down a bit. The light's turning softer. The monkeys are eating their jackalberries. Byron is still bashing through the bush after Tingana, I think. I'm sure he'll find him again. Just wonderful. We are still trying to find out what's going on with the stream, everybody. We don't know if we're live or not. I think it's actually very easy for me to check. Louise, I'll check. I'll just use my 3G signal. Can't we do it like that? Right. Twitter. I can find out. Anybody, if we are still live, please tweet immediately #safariLIVE. #safariLIVE. Search. No, what I've got is one from James Richard 10 hours ago. That can't be right. Oh no, hang on, 31 minutes. Let's go back here. 21 hours, 12 hours. Good grief, I don't even know how to do, I don't know how to search these things. Never mind, we're having a wonderful time with the monkeys.
On YouTube,
Oh, we are live, yes. We are definitely live. We've had a couple of wonderful screenshots. Thank you, everybody, for sending through your screenshots. I've seen them now on my telephone of the monkey after the stream went down in the final control, so we most certainly have been live all the time. What a relief, David, that we didn't say any naughty words. Isn't that a relief?
Very lucky.
I was always slightly afraid of that. Anyway, these monkeys are having a delicious Sunday afternoon tea as the sun begins to go behind a cloud on the western horizon. Marvellous. And in the background again, a red-chested cuckoo. Right, I think we've lost sight of all the minkies now. Shall we press on? We're having a little boat ride down the Umluamati, hoping to see signs of Kurula, the great queen. Right, well that was a delicious sighting. Byron is still and has re-established contact with Tingana. Let's go and say hello to them.
So some of our viewers might be wondering what was going on with that little insert. So we're trying something new. So occasionally when we do link between the presenters, we'll do that little insert. Let us know what you think. It's always nice getting feedback and letting us know how the viewers feel. We're still sitting with Tingana. He's just moved down the other side of the dam wall from where he was drinking, and he's now just lying down, resting. It's in a bit of shade there, and the temperature has cooled down quite a bit. It's still very warm and very muggy, but much cooler than it was earlier today. I mean, 36 degrees earlier was quite hot. Just going to actually reposition a little bit because there is another vehicle coming. I just want to make sure there is space for them. So let me just move a little bit forward down to here, and then they should be able to position anywhere they like. And that's one of the things as a guide you need to always remember is positioning of a vehicle is very important, especially when you've got photographic guests on the vehicle that want to get a good photo. But for anyone, you don't want to be sitting looking at an awkward angle, and you also need to take in consideration the other vehicles that are around so that everybody can get a view when they are out here. And we've got a lovely view, and so have the other guests. So I do think that this male leopard will possibly rest here for quite some time now after that long drink of water he had. There's no need for him to move. Wait till it cools down a little bit and then probably move around during the course of the evening. And Kim, all the way from Florida, good afternoon to you, Kim. You wanted to know, what did I call that loose skin or flap under the neck of the leopard? It is called a dewlap. And now my spelling, and maybe the ladies in the FC can help me with the spelling, but I think it's D-U-L-A-P, the dewlap. Brian, do you know? I think so. I've never had to write dewlap. So, And, let me see. I think that's the correct spelling. And with these big males get it. You don't really see it on females or younger leopards. The older males do get it, and I think it serves as a way of protection around the neck, the looser skin, if they do get into any fights with one another, because leopards can be very territorial, and they do occasionally get into aggressive fights with one another. So that looser skin around the neck can protect the throat and obviously the head, but mainly the throat area, because if they do bite one another around there, they don't want to puncture anything vital. So that is probably the main purpose of that dewlap. And I understand that our viewers are having mixed reactions to that little insert that we put in there. It's good. Well, let's see, and we'll try to work out what works and what doesn't. But don't panic. It wasn't the end of the show. It was just a quick insert changing between presenters. It really is spectacular to be able to sit and view a big male leopard like this. And the nice thing is some of the other people have all been here and viewed this leopard and moved on, because it has been quite hot. So for some guests to sit out in the heat, it's not that comfortable. So they've seen a leopard and they've moved on to see what else they can find, which is great for us, because then we have the opportunity to spend a bit more time here and sit with the leopard now and see what he gets up to. We obviously hardened bushgoers. We don't mind the heat. Hey, Brian disagrees with me, I think.
Not when you get, not if you parked in the heat all day. As a presenter.
I've learned that to keep the cameraman happy, I need to park the vehicle in the shade as much as possible. Otherwise, I get shouted at. Don't forget to some of our new viewers, if you've just joined us, send questions at #safariLIVE via Twitter. Otherwise, you can email us questions@wildearth.tv. And we love hearing from all of you and getting your questions and comments. Lindsay, you'd like to know if you wanted to come on safari in Southern Africa, what the best time of year is. Well, the coolest time. You asked what the coolest time of year would be. So anywhere from about May onwards, I would say, it starts cooling down quite a bit. But May, June, July are usually our winter months, especially June and July. It gets quite chilly and quite cold. So anywhere between May and August is usually a very nice time of year if you prefer the cooler conditions. The bird life does change because a lot of birds do migrate for the winter, so you're not going to see as many birds. There are still beautiful birds around. There are not as many bugs around, so if you don't like bugs, it's also an ideal time of year because it is so much colder, and also not as much rain. We get very little rain in winter, and that's why it's our drier season. So a lot of people do enjoy that time of year for safari. So, and like I say, if you do enjoy the cooler temperatures, that would be the best. I always say, guests ask me all the time, the best time of year to come on a safari. I really like April and May, just because it's that almost a secret season, moving out of summer, you're going through autumn and into winter. Down here in the southern hemisphere, and the temperature does start dropping. It's much cooler. The bush is still green because we are moving out of summer, so you do still get wonderful lush trees and that around before you start moving straight into winter, where everything does start going brown and yellow. But that's also beautiful colors. But I do enjoy April, May. Those are my favorite months of the year. A lot of people also really enjoy August and September. So just coming out of the winter, it's not too cold, the temperatures are warming up. The mornings and the evenings are a lot cooler, which is nice, but not too cold. The days are beautiful, kind of mid-20s, so around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, between 70 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere around there. Crystal, you wanted to know, can other leopards sense if there's another leopard around them? Crystal, these animals do rely so much on their sense of smell and their hearing, and especially their sense of smell. They can pick up the scent of another leopard very easily, I think. And look, if there was another leopard that just came into the territory and surprised this male, I mean, it could get a fright. It could be surprised, but in my experience, seeing male leopards moving around, they are aware of other leopards being in their territory, and they do pick up on the scent and the smell and probably hear them. Leopards do territorial calling, and usually when they get into an area, and especially these male leopards, if they do come across one another, there's quite a show. And usually what happens is they try and basically intimidate the other leopard, and the reason for that is these animals are solitary, so they try not to get injured, because if they do get injured, they are unable to hunt for themselves. So it is important that they avoid confrontation at all costs. So often what they'll do is they'll walk up and down in a line next to one another, and they'll growl and snarl and bare their teeth. They salivate quite a lot, and all of that is to intimidate the other leopard. And by doing that, they will hopefully push the other one away. So they size each other up a little bit, and perhaps they will then leave, not having fought with one another. However, it does happen where they do end up fighting, and these males will tackle each other and fight and scratch and bite. And that can get very violent, but then usually a winner is sorted out very quickly, or defined very quickly, and then they'll split up, and the winner will be able to keep his territory, and the other one will move off. So it does happen, but generally with leopards, they try and avoid confrontation. Now, Deer, I hope I'm saying that correctly, Deer would like to know, do the leopards and lions smell similar? Deer, okay, that's what Lou is saying. And you would like to know, do leopards and lions smell the same or similar? And no, I don't think they do. The reason I say that is, look, I think if you had to get down and smell cats, a cat that was very close by, if you got close enough, they probably would smell slightly similar. But I do believe they've got a very different scent. And the interesting thing, and the best way to describe it, or give you an example, is with these leopards. When these male leopards move around and scent mark, and some of you might laugh at me, but I'm being completely serious. When they scent mark, the scent does smell a little bit like popcorn. And you can often pick up on the smell very clearly if you are following a leopard and they stop and they scent mark, spray urine on a bush. If you drive past, you do get a popcorn smell. That's the best way to describe it.
It's only popcorn, buttered popcorn.
Buttered popcorn. Brian says buttered popcorn. Right, yes, the best kind. So, but it definitely does smell like that, which is very interesting. Lion scent does not smell like that, and I have smelt bushes after lions have passed through. It's a little bit, I don't know how you could describe that. I would say a typical urine smell, perhaps. Slightly acidic. But harder to describe the lion scent, but the leopard scent definitely. So they do smell different. They and I think that's also how they would recognize that there's probably another predator in the area, is by the scent. Excuse me, I just need another sip of water. Sure, the water gets very warm out here very quickly. It's like drinking tea now. Now there's an African cuckoo calling, everyone, and I know you all enjoy my bird calls. I'm not sure if you can hear it. It sounds similar to the African hoopoo, but it does a boop boop, boop boop, boop boop, and you can hear it in the distance. My bird calls aren't great, but there's an African cuckoo that is calling in a constant call in the distance. Look at that sunset, everyone. Beautiful silhouette of those trees. So this is so nice. There's actually a slight breeze which has just picked up that we can feel at the moment, which is always welcome. Cool us down a little bit. And it's so wonderful and spectacular to still be able to sit with this male leopard. He hasn't moved off too far, and we've been lucky. We spent most of the afternoon with him. I mean, we did have to walk through this drainage line looking for him a little bit earlier, and we were fortunate that we thought, remember we said we thought he'd come down to the water, and then he was lying very close to the water on that termite mound. So it was a bit easier to find him than I anticipated. I thought he'd be down in a thick drainage line, possibly further down off to our left. It does get a lot thicker, but luckily he stayed at the water, went and had a long drink, and now is just resting. You can actually see the size of those paws. Very large paws on these male leopards, and they're incredibly powerful animals. I've seen these male leopards hoist kills like a full-grown impala ram up into a tree, which is probably about 50 or 60 kilograms. So what's that, 140 pounds, I think, or somewhere around there, which is amazing. 120, 140 pounds. Hoist right up into a tree. That Anderson male that we spoke about earlier, that big male leopard, I saw him a few months ago, and he actually hoisted a young buffalo calf into a tree, which was incredible. I mean, just to give you an idea of the size of that leopard and how powerful he is to hoist a young buffalo calf. I do believe that pound for pound, these are probably the most powerful predators that we have here. Even though lions are incredibly strong and powerful, but lions are much bigger than leopards. A big male lion can weigh up to 200, maybe 220 kilograms, roughly around 450 to 500 pounds. So much, much larger, and obviously because they are much larger, they are more powerful, but I think pound for pound, leopard must be one of the most powerful predators we have. Well, definitely in the cat family. I might sit here for a little bit longer, and while we do that, I wonder what James has been up to. Let's head over to James and see what he's doing and what he's got. And don't forget, ask James what belt he made it to in his martial arts. He loves that question.
There are some nyala, everybody, and Byron is an idiot. You want you to tell him that next time. Oh, thank you, David. That was very nice clicking. Why have we come to see me so soon?
I just thought you wanted to give comments on
Oh,
Byron.
a comment on Byron, yes. Byron is incessantly asked me how many belts I got in my very brief foray into martial arts. And the big joke, of course, is that we didn't get belts at all. And I don't know why he finds that so funny. It irritates me every time he does it, and that's why he keeps doing it, I suppose. Anyway, there we are, some nyala. We came here, everyone, because we heard some buffalo going, "Bleh," but we were around here. And we've been with the monkeys. We're not far from the monkeys now, and everything else looks very chilled. So I think it's unlikely that the buffalo are being killed. I think it's much more likely that they probably had a little spat about who should get the last piece of long grass under a bush. But look how the light has softened, everyone. And we have gorgeous nyalas. And shortly it's definitely going to be time to head towards the north to see if we can't find the Djuma Pride again just before they get mobile. Around about sunset we want to try and find them. It's just too stunning, everyone. It's too gorgeous to be out here. I could have sat with those monkeys in that drainage line with some a cup of tea and just absorbed the atmosphere all afternoon. Oh, this is why I live here, you see. Just to suck in this atmosphere. Breathe it in, absorb it, smell it, hear it, see it, feel it, taste it sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't taste so good. Sometimes it tastes bad. Good. Right, route. I think let's go up Twin Dams Road. That takes us back to Leadwood, which is towards where, towards Mumba Road, which is where we sort of went before. So let's go up Twin Dams, see if we can find anything there. Maybe we misheard where that buffalo was coming from, but I'm pretty sure it was in here somewhere. And it's quite, it's a very long way from where we had the nkuhumas this morning. And I just don't think that on a day as blindingly hot as it was today, I don't think they would have moved. So that is where we'll go. I believe Tingana is finding the heat a little bit overwhelming. He's had a drink and he's now lying on the ground, as Louise describes him, like he's dead. Now, Djinwali, you're wondering how big the reserve is. The reserve, Djinwali, is part of 8.5 million acres, or 3.5 million hectares. That's the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. Of that, the Kruger National Park makes up 2.2 million hectares, or about 4.5 million acres. And then we are on the western fringes of it, and our traversing area is about 10,000 acres, or 2,500 hectares. Is that correct? No, 3,500 hectares, that's correct. So that's quite a lot, and it's certainly big enough for us to encompass the pride territories of 1.5 lion prides, the Birmingham boys, our wonderful male lions, 2 or 3 female leopards and their cubs. So there's lots in this magnificent area. I think one more foray up the drainage here, just for in case. All right, James Richard, while we drive up this drainage line, I will tell you the story of There He Is There. Now, everybody, I don't know how many of you know this, but Byron, when he began his guiding career, I was in fact his trainer. Now, I must, at this point, categorically say that Byron is definitely one of the most gifted, if not the most gifted natural guides I've ever guided. So I taught him very little, except one thing I did try and impart to him was a slightly better grasp of the English language. And One of the things we did was we'd go out, there were 6 of us training, or it was me and 6 trainees, and we'd go and look at birds and mammals, and we'd try and acquire some knowledge. And one of the things you had to do, of course, is learn bird calls. And one of the bird calls is that of the Steerling's wren warbler. And the Steerling's wren warbler sounds as follows. It goes tick-a-tick, 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 or anyway, please ask Byron to make that call for you. You'll laugh until next week. But we heard this bird one day down south of not very far where we are now, and we heard the call of the Steerling's wren warbler. Now, none of the new guides had seen the Steerling's wren warbler before, so they were very excited about the possibility of perhaps seeing it again. And so we moved around and we were looking and we heard it calling tick-a-tick, 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 and then it would fly away and we'd hear another tree going tick-a-tick, tick-a-tick, tick-a-tick. And Byron, sitting with his binoculars to his eyes, eventually pointed and said, "There's he there!" So I looked at him and all the other trainees looked at him and I said, "What did you just say?" He said, "There's he there!" So I said, "Do you mean there he is over there? Is that what you're trying to say?" And Byron said, "Yeah, but there's he there." Byron, of course, is from the south of Johannesburg, where English has morphed into something that it was never meant to be. And so I had to explain to him that if he had guests from around the world, although he was very friendly, personable, had a fairly good amount of knowledge, to say something like, "There's he there," to somebody from, well, I don't know, America, someone from England, someone from Spain, and then wouldn't know what on earth he was talking about. So that is the story, James Richard, of "There's he there." And every time I hear that bird, tick-a-tick, 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 that's what I think of. There's he there. Right, we are going to head up now towards where the Nkuhumas were. I know that they were not found earlier this afternoon. I think somebody gave a perfunctory sort of drive through the area to see if they could find them. There is a beautiful crested barbet, David, perfectly framed in the setting sun. Wonderful. He hasn't cleaned his beak. He's got a caterpillar. So, that's actually quite interesting because a crested barbet is supposed to be, that is disgusting, is supposed to be a frugivore. In other words, a fruit-eating bird. That particular one will be a frugivore, but obviously around here, you've seen, I'm sure, if you've been watching for any length of time, there is not a great deal in the way of fruit out here. So a frugivore must make do with other things like caterpillars. David, would you eat a caterpillar? Yes. Have you eaten one? No, I haven't either. I remember, did your peers used to bring silkworms to school? Yes. My peers also used to bring silkworm to school. And then some sort of rebellious fellows or disgustingly and psychotically disturbed fellows would then go and eat their silkworms, which of course put me off for life. That's another story like the one of "There's he there." Yes, we had a wonderful time we did down in the south during that 3-month period where Byron and 5 others and I spent 3 months every day driving around morning and night, laughing our heads off and learning a great deal at the same time. It was wonderful. Here are some impalas. We haven't done an impala stop today, or we have sort of, but not perhaps sufficiently. Ooh. So while we look at these, also, the Birchall starling up top there. See the one there? It just dropped something onto the floor. And I'm interested because it looked a little bit like a snail. Maybe it was a fruit, I don't know. But of course we do know of birds that will drop things in order to break them. but I don't think that's what was going on there. Marvellous. Let's continue. Hornbill. Well spotted, David. Now, the hornbills at this time of the day like to have an ant bath or eat some ants. He's going to eat a grasshopper, not an ant. And they like to kind of lie in the sand over an ant nest, and the ants go crawling up onto the feathers, and the formic acid helps clean off parasites. It's a rather clever thing, and then they eat the ants off their feathers. It's a bit like eating dishwashing liquid, I suppose. I'm glad we don't have to do that as well. There we are. Hello, James Bear, PhD Emeritus. I guess that means that you were at the university for some time. James Bear, while we look at that, what could only be described as mangy nyala, and it does have mange, I can see that. It doesn't seem to be doing too badly. You're wondering about crows and why we've never shown you crows. We have once or twice, and we do get them in this area from time to time. The pied crow is the most obvious one, but they're not common at all. They are common in South Africa, but just not in the game reserve areas. Certainly if you go into the community areas, you will find pied crow very often. And yes, we do, as you do in the States, call them a murder of crows. Ooh. There, just up here, right up here, Dave. It's a cuckoo, everybody. And I think it's the Jacobin cuckoo. It's Jacobin or striped? It is Jacobin. Striped. Hang on a second. Striped, also known as Verreaux's. No, not Verreaux's, Le Valiant's. I thought I heard another buffalo call, but I didn't. I'm going to carry on. They, of course, brood parasites. I don't remember what they parasitize. I'm going to have to look it up. Every year I have to look it up. I can't remember from year to year. By the end of the summer season, I will know exactly what the birds parasitize. Right, Jacobin. They are brood parasites. Ooh, gosh, that was close. Never be on your phone while driving, everyone. Bulbuls, largely bulbuls and common fiscal, which we don't get here. So, bulbuls. Now, Byron is ready to give you an update. I'm not sure what he's doing, what he's looking at. Let's go and find out. There's he there.
So Tingana was still lying down and resting, everyone. We decided we'd just take a bit of a drive, having a look around to see if we can't find anything else to show you. We will head back to him and see what he does get up to. It's also nice to have a bit of a breeze. It's still very, very hot and muggy. Hang on, there's a cuckoo. Where is it? Oh, these brakes. Can you see him, Brian? I just heard him, everyone. I'm trying to look for him. Oh, no, I can't see him. Do you see a woodpecker? Oh, look at that, everyone. A woodpecker. Oh, wonderful. Now, let me just see. That looks like it is a bearded woodpecker. Let me just double check for you in my book. Some of these woodpeckers do look fairly similar. Let me have a quick look here. There we go. And I think I'm right. It is indeed a bearded woodpecker. Oh, wonderful. So, and I'll show you shortly, but let's just watch that woodpecker for a while. Watch him knocking about, looking for some food, insects. Amazing little birds, aren't they? Well spotted, Brian. And I can't see that. I don't know where that cuckoo went to. Heard him, but it disappeared. But let's have a look just over here. This is the bearded woodpecker, the one that we just saw. And you could very clearly see those black markings on the side of the face and on the throat. So quite easy to identify. Although some of the species, and I'll show you just on the other page, but they've all got this reddish head. And if I just page back one, you'll see. Look how they've all got some form of marking around the throat area, and all have a bit of red on the head. The other one, the golden-tailed woodpecker, the females have got a bit of black under the throat, but also those white specks. So you should be able to see that if you look carefully. But all have a bit of red on the head. Look at that. They all look so similar, don't they? So you do have to look for specific little things, and distribution will help you identify these woodpeckers. But that was a bearded woodpecker. A wonderful bird to see. Maureen from the United Kingdom, you wanted to know what the maximum temperature is that we would stay out in the sun on a safari. And sure, Maureen, some areas it can get up to 45, 48 degrees Celsius, which is about 120 Fahrenheit, I think. So that's very, very hot. And also the other thing is it all depends on the guests. So if the guests say, listen, Byron, it's a bit too hot this afternoon, what do you recommend? And I might say, why don't we wait a little bit and go out a little bit later when the temperature starts cooling down, and we can possibly stay out a little bit longer on our evening safari. Because at the end of the day, we are here to see the animals, and you don't want to miss out on game drives or the safari. So we try and manage it that. And I certainly do with my guests, that if some of them don't want to get up too early in the morning, one morning we could possibly go out a bit later. There goes a cuckoo, just flew past us. It looked like a cuckoo. It's just sat up at the top there, Brian. Those branches at the back, you got it? It is a Levalent cuckoo, everyone. There it is. Now, James showed you the Jacobin cuckoo with the black and white, looks almost identical. But if you look closely, see the streaking on the throat. This used to be known as the striped cuckoo. It is now known as the Levalent cuckoo. Levalents. Beautiful cuckoos. Wow, so we've been lucky. And I think this may have been the cuckoo that we heard earlier. It sounded like a Levalent cuckoo. So that's another cuckoo to add to your list. Those of our viewers who are keen birders, if you haven't seen this one yet, we've been lucky. We've been seeing a lot of cuckoos between all the presenters while we've been out. From African cuckoo, we saw the great spotted cuckoo the other day, the Levalent cuckoo, Jacobin cuckoo, red-chested cuckoo, and the Diedrich's cuckoo. So that's quite a number of cuckoo species, and there are still more to find. Classes cuckoo is another one we need to see. And there it goes, off it goes. Wonderful. So that was really nice surprise. And that's what I said, just driving around like this is great, and you bump into little things. You get to see these wonderful birds like that cuckoo, the cuckoo and the woodpecker, the bearded woodpecker. A little bit of a nice cool breeze while we're driving around. Okay, James is with the lions, which is great. So head over to James. We're going to do that little insert again, everybody, so don't worry, it's not the end of the show, as I said. And let's head over to James.
wasn't that a traumatic insert, everybody? I hope that you're all okay. Don't worry, we're with the lions, and they're fast asleep. Well, most of them. The one thing that I did want you to look at, especially, was the fact, or just see if you noticed, because I think that this morning I noticed that they are scratching less. I think that the mange, and I'm obviously going out on a limb here, is starting to have, I think they've got over the top with the worst of it. I think they're starting to conquer it. And if we look at a wonderful cub that will be known henceforth by this name, Flip Flop, there you can see he's got... He has scratched his ear so much that I think the cartilage is broken, and I think that it'll probably not recover. But you can see that he is not, or she, sorry, it's a lioness, she is not scratching herself at all anymore. There are one or two that are still having a little bit of a scratch and a bite here and there. But remember, about a week ago, when we found them not far from here, well, they haven't been far from here for about 2 years now, but just down through the drainage, there's a little pan, and we saw the wood sandpiper. They were sitting, crushing against trees. They were scratching and biting, and they were having a horrible time. There's not one cub here right now that is, well, they're biting their mothers, but they're not scratching at all. And I think that means that they have beaten this mange. So maybe I'm speaking too soon, but let's hope that that is the case, and that their fur and the ear of little Flip Flop starts to recover. Isn't that good news? And for those of you who are wondering who gave that lioness the stupid name that is Flip Flop, and the fact that henceforth, despite its obvious magnificence as one of the great cats of Africa, it will forever be known by the ridiculous name of Flip Flop, we have Byron to thank. He wanted me to remind you that it was he who came up with the name. So there I have reminded you. That is Byron's fault. Oh, that's a wonderful shot of the foot there, David. Well done. Good foot shot. Possibly the best I've seen. But even little Flip Flop, who looked like the worst affected by the mange, is not scratching right now. Oh, sweet. Look at her. That's so sweet. And she has got mange on her face, but she's not scratching. And she's sleeping quite peacefully. I think this is brilliant news. And then and there's the great attempt to suckle from a mother who's getting very sick of having to produce milk at this stage. James, you wondering if I think the soil holds the spores of mange. James, spores, you mean a bit like anthrax? No, anthrax is a fungus, and that's why it has spores, and that's why they sit in the ground. Mange is caused by mites, and mites are little arachnids, if I'm not much mistaken, minuscule microscopic mites, or arachnids that get into the skin. And so, no, they're definitely not, they don't breed by means of spores. Their eggs, I suppose, yes, indeed, their eggs could be dormant in the soil, perhaps, and perhaps they only come out when it's dry, much the same as anthrax does. So that's possible. Affirmative. I'm just answering on the game drive. Somebody's trying to get into the sighting. So that's my answer there. Yeah, why not? The eggs may well get stuck in the soil. It certainly would be a good explanation for why it is that mange has come out coincidentally, or perhaps not so coincidentally, during the height of a very dry year. And plenty of ticks in that ear, aren't there? He's going to need some oxpecker attention. But again, I think even less mange than there was. There's a little bit of scratching going on. Let's just keep watching and see if the others start as well. I mean, that lion's basically eating its heel off, so still itchy. But I think you'll all agree with me that there's definitely much less of the scratching than there has been. Michael, you're interested in which one of the litters Flip-Flop comes from. You think you say is she one of the teddy cubs? Yes, I think she is. I think she is a teddy cub. There she is. Unless she's one of the others. No, I'm pretty sure she's a teddy. Yeah, I think she's a teddy. Oh, look. That's very sweet. I've just heard something on the radio, everybody. That's why I'm laughing while we look at that. And I shall share it with you because, well, you know, you can keep a secret. One of the rangers who shall remain nameless just asked another ranger who shall also remain nameless whether or not he'd brought his guests to the lions, to which he replied in a language called Whanagalore, which is not a language at all, but anyway, that's another time for another discussion for another time. He said, no, I didn't take them to the lions because they're calling the animals. They think the animals are dogs, so he's going to take them for a drink instead. He's not going to show them the lions. Oh, that's a lesson to everybody. If you come out here, of course, obviously, being Wild Earth viewers, you would never think to click your fingers or whistle at animals so that they looked at your camera. I have to admit I have done it once or twice myself, but it is very non-new. Everyone lying on their backs at the moment, playing with sticks, resting their long rapier claws in the bark, and swatting at each other. I'm glad they're just starting to get active and the sun has just gone down, sort of. So we'll see if they get up and do anything useful this evening. I wouldn't eat that ear. I mean, if they're going to get mange, that's where you're going to get it from. Kat, you've noticed that the cubs here are darker than the mothers. They are. And you say, will they get lighter as they get older? Yes, they definitely will. But if you look at the flanks of the one on her back there, Dave, if you don't mind, the one who's just about to sit up. No, the adult. There we go. Those flanks are pretty much the same color. And so I think there is a certain amount of variation. But certainly they are a little bit darker, more mustard colored, I suppose, than the rest of the adults are. There's an elephant somewhere in this bush. I can hear 3 or 4 of them actually moving. And every so often you'll hear a branch breaking. And that's what that is. Does everyone agree with me that there's much less scratching going on? Or has this happened before where we've come to the site and although we know that they are riddled with the disease, they haven't been scratching? Maybe also the moisture in the air has meant that A, they haven't been reinfected, and B, it might just be affecting. So I think we're looking good here for the overcoming of the mange story by the Djuma Pride, which of course they're uptown lions, you know. They're not like the Styx Pride from the wrong side of the tracks. These chaps are from a fairly exclusive part of town. You'd expect their medical care and insurance to take care of them, wouldn't you, David? And indeed it seems to have. That lioness is doing her yoga before going off on hunting. Lindsay, yes, the answer to your question is a big fat affirmative. Can humans get mange? They can, but we don't call it mange. We call it scabies. I think you've probably heard of scabies. It's a dreadful mite skin disease, and I imagine for us probably these days relatively easy to treat, but it's the same thing. It's called sarcoptic mange, basically, or scabies in human beings, and it's caused by a mite. It gets into your skin and creates tremendously itchy patches. Not had it myself. I don't think I've met anybody who's had scabies. David, have you had scabies before? No, good. Phew. There the lioness doing the downward dog in full view of the other one. Right, Byron, astonishingly, is back with the male leopard. Let's go and find out how that's going. I'm going to stay here and see if these chaps don't get up.
Why astonishingly, James? So this leopard has not moved, everybody. He's still relaxing and resting just down in this little bit of a drainage line away from the dam. And fortunately for us, he's lying out in the open. So we've got a wonderful view of him now. We just changed positions. We're actually up on the dam wall at the moment looking down at him. And as you can see, we're right here. So it's what I mean. I do believe because it's so hot that's why this leopard hasn't decided to move. He's comfortable lying down there, probably just trying to wait till it cools down before he does move. And I was getting the updates that James was just mocking me slightly. He gets quite upset when I ask him what belt he is in his or that he got to in his martial arts. And then I understand he told you about the story where, well, he claims I said, there's he there, but I didn't. And we were training, and I think it was just excitement and spotting a bird and saying, there it is over there. But I said it so quickly that he then, and James has always mocked me for being from the south of Johannesburg, which is not that bad, a beautiful area. And I went to school right next door to James. I think there's a bit of rivalry there because the two schools, two very good schools in Johannesburg, and they're right next door to one another. So he gives me a hard time from being from that school, and I give him a hard time from being from the school that he is from. But I think that's why we get along so well. Denise, you wanted to know if leopards are endangered. No, they are not. Denise, to be honest, there's, I've read and tried to find out exactly how many there are within the greater Kruger. It's very difficult to tell because you don't see the leopards as much as you see lions and that, but there are plenty of leopards around this area, this part of South Africa, but not just here. Throughout South Africa, there are leopards just about everywhere, and the reason for that is these cats adapt so well to different areas, different terrain. They're very elusive, they're excellent hunters, and they can hunt animals. Well, they've got a large range of food that they will hunt, so anywhere from snakes and fish that they'll fish out of rivers or waterholes, all the way up to large antelope like kudu, and even young eland, which is the largest antelope in Africa. So these leopards are incredible animals, and the way they are able to adapt to their surroundings and to the areas that they live in is incredible, and that is why they do occur all over South Africa especially, but also Southern Africa. There's a lot of leopards all over there, not endangered at all. It's just we don't really know how many there are because it is so difficult to keep track of these leopards, especially when they don't want to be seen. You are not going to find them. I told you earlier, when I was tracking Tingana, I had tracked a male leopard not too long ago, in August. I was tracking a male leopard and literally walked past a thicket 2 meters from me, and he was lying in there, and we didn't know because it was so thick, and he didn't move. He he didn't make a sound. He lay in there dead still. And we walked past 3 or 4 times. Eventually, we managed to spot just his tail sticking out a little bit. So they are incredibly elusive. They're very intelligent cats. And that is why I think one of the reasons is that they are found throughout the country, not just in South Africa, but also throughout the continent of Africa, all these leopards. And then on other continents like South America, you've got the jaguar, which is basically a big leopard. And those jaguars get to the size of about a female lion. So you can imagine a large male jaguar weighing between 120 and 140 kilograms, somewhere around there. I think they can get up to 160, if I'm not mistaken. Some of my friends have been over and seen jaguars. I haven't been there yet. But then in India, you've got leopards in India too, and you've got snow leopards, and you've got clouded leopards. So many different species of leopards. But within Africa, these leopards adapt very well to whichever terrain they are found in, and we do get them all over the continent. Marie, you want to know why the leopards don't interact with their offspring like lions do. So, Marie, one of the main reasons is because leopards are solitary. That is the niche that they fulfill within nature. And the niche is the role, it basically is the role that these animals play within nature. So the leopards are solitary animals. They move around by themselves, they hunt for themselves, and that is what makes leopards successful. They are not pride animals like the lions that are in large groups or in prides. They're not pack animals like wild dogs. So one of the reasons is purely that. The females will raise the cubs up to about 1.5 years on average. Generally that's how long cubs will stay with the adult females. It may be even sooner than that before they get pushed off, maybe 1 year, but usually it's 1.5 years. The males have absolutely nothing to do with raising of the cubs. All they are there for is there to mate with the females and then basically move on and possibly mate with another female, but they do not have anything to do with raising the cubs. However, because females that mate with the males are usually within their territory, the males may come across those cubs at times, but then they'll recognize the female by the scent. They know they've mated with them and probably recognize the cubs as their own, also based on scent. And they tolerate them, but they won't necessarily interact with them for very long. I have seen male leopards interact with their offspring, though. It does happen, but it might be for perhaps a day or two, and then they move on again. They don't stay together because they are solitary animals. So I think that's probably the main reason. All right, everyone. We've spent such a wonderful afternoon with Tingana. It's been fantastic to see him, from finding him earlier at the waterhole to seeing him drinking and now resting. I think what we're going to do is we're going to leave him now, give him his space, let him move around during the course of the evening. He may rest here for quite some time still. So we're going to move around and see what else we can find. And while we do that, let's head back to James and the lions and see what they're up to.
They are not doing much except sort of getting toward the preliminary stages of bonding, which often precipitates a hunt. Of course, the cubs won't hunt. They'll be left here now. I'm not going to put a light on them because the cubs are too young at this stage for us to light up. I might put a gentle floodlight on them as it gets very dark, but I'm not going to put a spotlight on them. And we'll see what happens then. But these young females may go off hunting. But for them to take down another buffalo, they are, of course, now without 2 of their cohorts. So it's a little bit difficult, I think, for them to take down something the size of a buffalo. It's not impossible, given the weakness of the buffalo. I mean, one of them walked into the water and dropped dead today, so it's not impossible that they can get hold of one. But let's see. I think we'll stay with them for the rest of the drive and see if they don't get up and do something useful. I'll probably head off into the drainage, which will require some serious driving. And the elephant's slowly grazing closer and closer to us. The lion's paying no attention because they can hear exactly where the trees are breaking. And it's just so wonderful to watch the affection that's taking place here. It's now getting quite dark. I mean, the picture you're seeing, as I've said to you before, is certainly making it brighter than it actually looks here. And there's just little grunting, little bits of sort of growling, if you like, friendly growling. The cubs talk to the mothers, and the mothers talk to the cubs. And then if you can try, Davey, sorry, to go into the other group there, it looks like the two females bonding with each other. And Mind Warp, you reckon that the Nkuhumas have never scratched anything like as much as the sticks did. So that's good news. So they obviously have been fighting the disease much more effectively. And certainly, I mean, when those sticks cubs died, they were hairless, basically. And I think it did progress a lot more quickly than the disease has here. Sounds of the night starting up. Heard the call of the litany bird, the fiery-necked nightjar going, "Good Lord, deliver us! Good Lord, deliver us!" It's an appropriate Sunday song, really, isn't it, David? Yes. And they're just loving this tickling from the mum. Could be an aunt. Hello, Anne. You're in Canada and you're a new viewer, and it's wonderful to have you with us. Thank you very much for getting hold of us, and thank you for watching. You say, if they did get mange badly, would we intervene? No, it's as you had sort of surmised at the end of your question. We'd try and let nature take its course. It seems to be the best way to go. Certainly, it will clear out any lack of resistance to the disease. And that's natural selection taking place. All right, I'm going to flick on a little bit of light now, Dave. There we go. A gentle floodlight. Well, it's not that gentle, but they're not trying to move, and we certainly wouldn't put it onto the cubs if the lionesses were not here. That's much better, isn't it, David? And there are elephants slowly making their way here. So, and there has been a huge amount of disease. There has been a huge amount of discussion as to whether or not they should be helped, and certainly many of our viewers were of the opinion that yes, they should be helped. But one of the arguments against that, of course, is that, well, do we not help the Nyala? Do we help the Impala? And obviously we don't, because we couldn't possibly do all of that. And the other thing to say is, yes, of course, lions are, as a whole, as a species, probably fairly heavily endangered, or certainly threatened. But in the Kruger area, the lion population is very healthy. And therefore, it's much better to try and let nature take its course, because by letting nature take its course, of course, the population will become stronger. Those sticks cubs, 8 of them, all dead now. The next lot that come along may well be able to fight the disease off, and they've already come along. One of the lionesses has already given birth, and that means, of course, that there could easily be a situation. Well, I mean, it was very quick. It was very fast that the pride made more cubs. The lionesses have been unaffected, and so I think it's made the lion population that much more healthy, actually more resilient. And that is what you need when you have a situation where animals are threatened. I think it's another classic example of our real desire to help. Certainly, when I first saw those sticks cubs, I thought, oh, we have to help. And then the arguments for not doing it were just a lot stronger, I think, and I'm really glad we didn't, because so often when we get involved as human beings, we make a big fat mess. Look at that. Imagine playing around teeth and jaws like that. Hello, Rose. It was obviously traumatic when those Styx cubs died, and you want to know if the pride just left them and when they died. I'm not sure exactly when they died. They died seemingly while I was on leave, so I wasn't here. And you want to know if the pride left them for vulture food or if they buried them. Rose, they most certainly didn't bury them. They're not big buriers of their dead lions. They often actually eat their own cubs, so it's quite possible that they ate them, which is... You see, in some ways, I guess people would think, oh, that's really distasteful. Yes, of course, as for human beings it is, but it's a way of making sure that the nutrients in the system don't get wasted. I don't know if that's what happened, but it certainly has happened many times. Lions and leopards both do it. And so I think what would have happened is that they, I suspect, just eventually the three little ones or all of the little ones would have been unable to keep up with the adults, and they would have been left to starve. Basically, that's what would have happened, I'm afraid. And I know that seems harsh, it seems horrible, and it would be if they were human beings, but they're not, they're lions. And that's the best way for their population to survive, it's the best way for them to get through life, and it's how they've evolved over millions of years, and because of that, that's the most successful strategy for the lions. Now, as soon as this lioness gets up, we'll move. But I don't want to just yet. I just want to spend as much time as we can with the cubs, and then we'll head off. Clearly, some of the cubs have gone with the other lionesses. Can you see them, Dave? No, I can see them moving off down towards the south. The cubs will eventually be left under a bush somewhere or in the shadows, where they will wait for the night, while the others, the lionesses, go off hunting. They look to me almost certain to hunt. There's an elephant getting very cross, somewhere not too far from here. Could be that the lioness and the Birmingham boy who were missing this morning, or the two lionesses and the Birmingham boys, are not too far from here. Maybe the elephants have just discovered them. Okay, let's try and turn around. It's going to be a little bit awkward in here. James, I think questions, I don't know the exact answer, but I'm going to say that it's a variable answer. That's my way of A, hedging my bets, and B, hopefully giving you some kind of idea. You say, do we know what range lions can smell a decaying carcass at? James, it depends very much on how decaying the carcass is. So is it just beginning its process of putrefaction, or is it actually already fairly rancid? And then the second thing to consider is the environmental conditions. How hot is it? How hot is it, and therefore how fast is it decaying? How much moisture is it and is there, and therefore how fast is it decaying? And so I would say at a maximum, I don't know why the figure of 8 kilometers is sticking in my mind, but I think it's probably roughly 8 kilometers or so, which is 5 miles. I think that's probably the outside maximum. All right, while we figure out what's going on in here, let's head back across to Byron and see what his plans for the short evening drive are.
Right, everyone, so we're driving around looking for chameleons, scorpions, anything nocturnal. I found something small, though, just off to the left. A little scrub hare. There we go, off it goes. Where did it go? Just there, Brian, there we go. Beautiful little scrub hare. Now, some of you might be watching and saying, oh, it looks like a rabbit. It's not a rabbit, it is a hare. Now, one of the largest differences between hares and rabbits is that when rabbits are born, they are born altricial. Now, that term means that the rabbits are born helpless. So they do not have fur, their eyes are not open, and the mother has to look after them while they are still so young. So they are born completely helpless, and they are born altricial. That is what the term is. Now, hares, however, when they are born precocial. Now, precocial means they've got fur, their eyes are open, and they can move very, very soon after birth. And because generally the hares are born above ground and just in little thickets, so they do need to move for safety, whereas rabbits are born underground in warrens. That's the term known for a rabbit rabbit home. It's known as a warren. So that's the main difference between hares and rabbits. One of the main differences. There are a few other differences, but if you can just remember that precocial and altricial, then that's enough for the rabbits and the hares. Nice. I don't want to shine the lights on it for too long. Oh dear. May end up staying out here, Brian. Alright, so let's see if we can find a chameleon, everybody. Marianne from Arkansas, you would like to know, if I'm guiding guests who don't speak English very well or don't speak English at all, how do I communicate what we are seeing and a lot of the information? So Marianne, usually what happens is I'll speak a lot slower, and usually I find most people that come on safari, even if they don't speak a lot of English, there'll probably be one person in the family that does speak a bit of English and can translate for the rest of the family. So all I do is speak a little bit slower, and I don't go into as much detail in terms of describing what we're seeing. There's no need to use too much scientific information, and that goes for every guest. It all depends on what the guests are looking for and what they are wanting to see and wanting to learn. Often I do enjoy guiding people and allowing them to ask questions, because then it gives me a good idea of what they are after and the depth of knowledge they do want to learn and find out about. Because I think a lot of the time, if you rattle off too much scientific information, it can get a bit lost on people when they are on safari. There's no need to go into too much detail, but it is important that we as guides have that information in case we do get asked the questions, so that we are able to answer them. But as I said, it generally depends on each guest, and if their English isn't great, I'll speak a lot slower and won't go into too much detail, purely speak about what we are seeing and what is happening. But I generally do that with most guests anyways, purely interpret what we are actually viewing, unless they have got other questions about other behavior with the animals that we might be seeing. Just have a look here. Let's see if we can find a scorpion, everybody. No, nothing. Sure. Nothing just yet. I do think that if James finds a scorpion tonight, I might be a little bit upset. Maybe bruise my ego slightly. Actually, I won't mind. I'm just joking. It's always nice if one of us are able to find a chameleon or a scorpion, anything interesting to show you. Doesn't matter who finds it. I was hoping I'm just driving past a little waterhole just off to our left, and I was hoping that we'd hear some frogs, but no frogs calling tonight. And Sarah from Cape Town, all the way from Cape Town, good evening to you, Sarah. You are saying you're coming up to Kruger in December, and you're staying in a rooftop tent, and you wanting to know if you are going to die of heat. Sarah, you're not going to die. You're just going to go home about 10 kilograms lighter, because you are going to sweat profusely in the rooftop tent. So be prepared for that. You are going to get very, very hot. But I don't think you'll die. Just drink a lot of water, but you are probably going to go back much lighter than when you arrived. And I think I'm hoping that's what's happened to me. I think I've come out here to lose weight. I'd like to look like my role model, James Hendry. James and his muscular physique. Let's head over to James and his muscular physique now and see what he's up to.
You know, some people, the less said about them, the better. There are the lions. They're just emerging now onto the road. The reason David and I came out onto the road was because that lioness there, who's lying there in relatively clean air, made a deposit that filled the entire Lowveld from Komatipoort in the deep southeast all the way up to Crook's Corner in the deep northeast, and then across to the Pafuri Gate and back down again to Cicada and the Pretorius Kop, with a green cloud, the likes of which you cannot imagine the stink that came off it. So Dave and I had to extract, I'm afraid. Thankfully, the entire pride is now moving down the road. This is good news. Let us continue with them. Thank you, Graham. You say in a couple more months these cubs will be the same size as the lionesses. They won't, Graham. It's actually quite interesting. What they will do is only attain this size when they're about 2.5. They'll be the same height, and then they'll fill out a bit from there. But what you find is that they'll get to about a year old, and then it almost seems like they don't get any bigger for a long time, but they do slowly. Sorry about the flashing there of our virtual reality rig. I just want to wait and see what these lions are doing. They're clearly listening. They're clearly trying to figure out what's going on. And they will, if they decide to hunt, they will put these cubs, they'll stash them in some thick bush, and they'll go off on their own. You see, even this little fanning out session that they're doing now, they've got a plan, an unspoken idea of what to do. If Taylor was here, what to do would be to kill buffalo by the dozen. But I'm not sure what their plan is right now. So the one lioness off to the right-hand side, very close to where we are now. I'll put the light on there. There she is. All the cubs in the road up ahead of us. And then the rest moving down the road. Now this is what lions do, of course. They get up and they move. And then they decide they're just too tired and they lie down for a little bit, and slowly their metabolism speed up to the point that they get actually on with the business of hunting. Yeah, no, Roger, you're absolutely correct for about 50% of lions. You say, when the lionesses mate, will it be time for them to leave the pride? Lionesses don't leave the pride. They'll stay here, but the males, as soon as they hit puberty, they will then leave the pride. And so before they mate, the males will be tossed out by their fathers, but the females will stay. And so the Nkuhuma pride, there are 8 cubs here, 5 of them females. The Nkuhuma pride can very soon find itself with 10 lionesses hunting, and then if they all get mated, you can imagine how quickly a pride of lions can grow in the absence of some kind of, say, disease like the mange, or perhaps a trauma from an incoming male coalition, which will of course kill all the cubs under a year old. But you can imagine how quickly it would happen, and then suddenly you've got 20 lions in a pride. That's probably a bit big for this area, and it'll eventually split up. And I think I keep forgetting this, but the Nkuhuma pride at its zenith, I think it was close on 20 lions at one stage. I think even more than that. I think it was 24 even. It went down to 5 not too long ago, and now it's back up to, well, if we include all the cubs, it's back up to 13. See them just moving so silently, you can't hear them moving in the slightest. Cat and cat tamper is a very easy question for me to answer from you. You say, which smells worse, lion dung or rotting carcass? Lion dung is rotting carcass that has been processed by the digestive system of a lion, and therefore it is like uber rotting carcass smell. It is much worse. It is the worst smell in the world. I'm going totally silently into the night as the call of the fiery-necked nightjar. I've always got to pause before I say fiery-necked nightjar. I'm not sure why that is the case. It's interesting to me that they're moving with the cubs. Let me just move the light, these lights on there. They're a bit nicer than the other ones. Is that all right, David? So we'll just stay far behind this one. We don't want to cause them any kind of distress. They mustn't feel vaguely threatened by us. Now, Casey, you're in New York and you're wondering if the territories of lions and leopards overlap. Absolutely they do. Casey, they eat a different suite of food. They've got a completely different kind of trophic niche, we call it, which is a food niche. Yes, there's some overlap in that, but because there's very little overlap, I mean, leopards will eat things up to the size of an impala, and lions will eat things basically impala-sized and up, so much bigger prey, and therefore they're not actually direct competitors, although they will kill each other's youngsters if they can. One of the lionesses is off to the side there, Dave. She's obviously decided that there might be worth pursuing a bit of a fanned out arrangement. She's now then laying down, of course. So Casey, yes, that's exactly what happens. And look, the dominant male leopard in this area you've spent most of the afternoon with, that's Tingana. He's a 9, close to 10-year-old male in his prime. And then the male lions of the area, which have a much bigger territory than Tingana's, probably about 3 times the size of Tingana's, they will encompass his territory, all of these 2 or 3 lion pride territories, and then the territories of the females too. I'm just going to stop here because the cubs have stopped moving for some reason on the road. They're going completely quiet. I'm just going to be quiet, just see what you can hear. I'm sorry about that aerial. Sorry, David. Let me move the car very slightly. Get that out of the way. And there we are. If Graham Wallington sees an aerial in a shot, everybody, he gets he's very upset indeed. It's the only time I've seen him upset. Okay, I'm afraid I'm going to have to turn the light off because the cubs are being a little bit too fascinated by it, and I don't want them to be, sorry about this, Dave, I'm going to have to kill it. I don't want them to be fascinated by the light simply because I want them to follow the mothers if they want them to. And so we're just going to turn off and sit for a little while. I can still vaguely see them there. I'll tell you what, I'll just put my little bit of torchlight on them, and then that won't make too much difference. All right, in the meantime, Byron has managed to find himself a little creature of the night. Let's go and find out what it is.
Yes, everybody, look what we have found, and it was actually Brian who spotted it, not me. I'm not going to take credit for it. A chameleon, look at that. Right there, can you see, everyone? Look at the shape of the back. Its head is actually just hiding behind the leaves, but I'm sure you can see it very clearly. A little flap-necked chameleon, and they do have a flap behind the neck, and that is where they get the name from. Look at that. I'm going to see if I don't know if I move back a little bit. Brian, what do you think for a better view?
Maybe try forward.
Maybe forward. Okay, let me see, everybody. Let's try keep an eye on it. Hang on. A few more leaves there. It's just there. Can you see that, everybody? Hang on. Oh dear. I think back, Brian. I don't think forward. Hang on. Maybe through there. There's still hang on. I want to try to show you his head so you can see him clearly. Let's have a look there now, Brian. I think just over there. Just every time behind a little branch. Very difficult to see him, but what a spot. And it's a slightly different green, everybody. And the shape of the, compared to the leaves, is slightly different. Maybe through there, I think. That's our best view, I think. There, just there. There we go. Sue, you asked what type of light we use at night. We don't use black light. We use a yellow spotlight. And all we do is we do look for the reflection of eyes of nocturnal animals. The chameleons don't give off any reflection, but they do appear to be a little bit different in color, as we said, in the shape. They do stand out a little bit, but this was an incredible spot from Brian. And he did see it just in that little thick part of the tree. They're slightly lighter color green, but it's not easy to spot these animals, these little creatures, the little flap-neck chameleons. We'll probably will start seeing more as the year goes on, and the reason for that is when we get more rain, they'll start becoming a bit more active because there'll be more insects around. But what a wonderful little sighting of a flap-neck chameleon, and they are incredible. You can actually see the legs. Kat, you were saying when you left South Africa, you actually left a bit heavier because the food is so amazing. Especially when you come on these safaris, you get fed and fed and fed, and the food is fantastic, and you're not as active because you're sitting on the vehicles all the time. And yes, but I think if you're going camping and you are catering for yourself, it's a bit different, and especially lying in a tent for most of the day or in the evenings, you're probably going to sweat a lot in December. So that should help for weight loss, perhaps. I don't know. But everybody, thank you so much from myself and from Brian and the thumb, the flame thumb for today because of the heat. Can you see? There we go. Look at that. Yeah. And we will see you all tomorrow morning again on our sunrise safari. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to head back to James. He's going to end the show with you. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening wherever you are in the world. Good night and goodbye.
I told you the cloud that the lion had made was green, and you can see that I have turned green. The lions have turned green. In fact, everything around us has turned green. Now, it is green, of course, not because the lion made a dreadful smell, but because we're now in infrared for 2 minutes. Anyway, we just thought this was the most sensitive way to look at the lions. In actual fact, we didn't remember we had infrared until Louise said that we did, and we do, and so now we're using it. And we just wanted to see if they weren't going to do a little bit of hunting, but instead they are asleep. And I must just remind you, while we watch these lionesses doing nothing at all, that the best question of the day, we should actually have a question of the day competition. But the best question of the day came from a viewer this morning after hearing Louise's slightly sort of robotic voice. She doesn't have a robotic voice, but when it comes through the radio it sounds robotic. Asked if Louise was an app. Like Siri, I assume. I don't know if the viewer was being serious. Regardless, it was extremely amusing. And so that wonderful question, is Louise Pavid an app, gets question of the day for this Sunday, the 6th of November, 2016. Have one last look at the lions. And it was Jason. Thank you, Jason. Hello, Nut. You're in... Nut is in Norway. Hello, Nut. I don't know why I think that's funny. Nut in Norway. You say this, you've just found the stream and you think it's wonderful. Well, Nut, thank you for joining us from Norway, and thank you especially. Look at the lions coming together now. It's going to bond a little bit. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sending us a question, and I hope that you will be with us for a long time to come. You can watch these little cubs growing up. You can watch the cubs or the lionesses produce more cubs. You can watch them hunting and their stories and the, like to sort of use the cliche, triumphs and tragedies will unfold over the days and years. So please do keep joining us. Thank you, everybody, for your efforts today, for joining us. It's been wonderful having you with us. We're going to say goodbye to you now. A big thank you to David on camera. David, well done. A big thank you to Louise Pavid, the greatest app in the world in Final Control, along with her programmer, Kirsten Max Smith, and, of course, to Byron, he who doesn't speak English, and Brian. We'll see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Bye-bye.